which is I, Bragi. We'll wait for somebody to turn up as I sort my fire out. And it's a bit cold in the house. I'm not using a flint and steel because I don't have one of them on me. Well, not at a hand anyway. And it's quite cold, so I'm going to light a fire as I wait for people to turn up. Of course, if you're new to the channel, then I am. Start again. If you're new to the channel, then I am Bragi, and I'm indeed a Viking putting some wood on this fire. This would be most embarrassing if my fire does not start. And don't forget to say hello in the comments. And soon I'll sit down. I've got the chair behind me. We're going to do a few things today and have a general chat. And I'll read your comments and we'll go from there. And I will continue to put some more of my Viking clothing on. Bear with me. I've just got to start my fire, as I didn't quite have time before the live stream to get my fire going. And of course, this will be a complete failure if the fire does not start. And I'm kind of judging it from the live stream itself, seeing what's happening with the fire. So I will check your comments in a minute, see if anybody said hello. If you are new, then this is a Viking channel, but we do lots of things on this channel, from funny fail videos to history, storytelling. I think the answer to YouTube is to be diverse. So I'm just trying to get my fire going a bit more. And I may need to move you forward a little bit. As you can see, there's the fire I'm working on. I've got a wood stove. I think very essential for most people to have a wood stove in their life. So we've got a comment here from Chunky Monkey 55555 who says do or three do's do. So there we go. I think that's successfully going okay. I need to put a bit more wood on. So just bear with me before I sit down. Some days it's handy just to blow into your fire, get it going. And I've slightly got the door open to get some air going through, because I don't want it to fail and have to be faffing about with the fire for quite a few minutes. Because I've got quite a bit of wood, so that's always handy to have. And certainly this season, this summer, I've chopped a lot of wood up in the garden and been scavenging for wood here, there and everywhere. And as you can see in the background, I've got my trusty shield at hand and my sword, just in case any Normans or Saxons decide to pillage the house whilst I'm on a live stream. Luckily I don't think that will happen, but then at some point I will put this coat on to wrap up a bit warmer, but for now I think we're doing okay. I may need to adjust the camera and move it a bit forward as I grab my cup of tea. I'll be waiting for some more people to come along. How are you today? A warm welcome. How is the quality of the camera and how is the quality of the audio? If you could let me know, that'd be great. I did try to advertise this live stream in advance, as I created a poll the other day asking what you want me to do, whether you want me to advertise it beforehand or just keep on doing these spontaneous live streams where I suddenly appear, which is not always the best plan, because if I put out a lot of videos on community posts, then you don't always get the notification if I've done too much on YouTube, as they do limit you to how many notifications you can get each day. And today I'm filming in what can only be described as my lounge, as the fire struggles to get going, so bear with me. I may need to just shove some more paper on. It makes you think, what would the Vikings use if you don't have newspaper and scraps of paper? it does really beg the question. Shove that on top for a minute as I crunch away some paper. We'll go and have a look at your comments. And today's live stream is a general hangout, and I'm going to read your comments. If you've got any questions, then that's also superb. So the environmental lobby be after you for having that, Bragi, laugh out loud. Well, the environmental lobby can just go and do one, really. Because, fuck me, I'm staying warm this year. And we allowed fires where I live in Derby. I mean, I'm pretty certain the environmental lobby, when the crap hits the fan and there's no electricity, they'll be wanting to have a fire in the house. So let's let them freeze to death. They'll soon change their mind. So just bear with me. This is a kind of a test idea as well. I did a live stream the other day here in the lounge, but I didn't really have anybody watching that one. For some reason, nobody got a notification. As I poke the fire. And if in doubt, put your old fish and chip box on, full of grease and fat. You know, burn it all is my motto when it comes to fires. And we'll try again. Eventually, it will get going. And I'm using one of these at the moment. So we'll go and have a look, see if any more comments. Oh yeah, I mean, it's alright saving the environment. But, you know, we go back 1,200 years or 1,000 years ago, it was even warmer than today. And the sea levels were much higher. You only got to look at the place where King Alfred made his fort. After that was all surrounded by water, whereas today it isn't. And you can see that on many episodes of Time Team when they go and investigate the land around it, and the land would have had water and inlets, and now because of the sea level change it's gone lower, that water's no longer there anymore. So, you know, environmental change is not a new thing. And as I often tell people, that, you know, it's all right talking about human-made climate change. I like to call it that rather than man-made, because it's not just man, it's humanity itself. You know, why should men just get labelled with changing the environment? It's a little bit outdated and sexist in my mind. So I think calling it human-made, climate change is a better description. But we seem to forget that the sun has a massive effect on climate change. So Chunky Monkey says, well said, sir. And it's looking good, so that's good on the old live stream. It must have good quality and good audio. And he says, I've read an interesting book about King Alfred. Well, what was the name of the book? I'd love to know. And see whether I've got it in my collection. If not, I'll have to write it down and look for it one of these days. As I go back to my chair and hope this time the fire settles in. Because it is quite warm. It's only 13.1 in this room. Most people would be quite cold at that, but I'm quite used to the cold. And Chunky Monkey says, let me look, it's an audio book. Oh right, yeah, audio books are quite cool. It's a lot easier than reading an actual book, and you know, you can get on with things in the meantime. I'm drinking tea, of course, because I'm British. Tea is essential, and again, it warms you up from the inside. So have your fire for the outside, and your cup of tea, you know, for the inside of, you know, warm up your body on both directions. And hopefully more people will join. We don't get a lot of viewers on the live streams, which is a pity, because they're missing out on some top quality fun. I'm sure you agree. So Chunky Monkey says, I don't really read books because I have bad dyslexia. Well, Eggle had that as well. He suffered from bad dyslexia when he was around. And of course tomorrow is the 9th, so it means that tomorrow is a very special day on the channel, for it is our 3rd Eggle Thorson Memorial Day. A day when we have an unpublished video from the great man himself. And tomorrow is a very good video I edited the other day, and it's on Viking and Anglo-Saxon drink. Well, in fact, that should be the other way around. It should be Anglo-Saxon and Viking drink. So it's got an unusual start of the video for Eggle, as I've made him work a bit harder. And it must have been shot a couple of years ago. So, yeah. And Chunky Monkey says, the Anglo-Saxons, a brief history of the beginnings of England, and Viking Britain, and exploration. Oh, they sound like 2 fascinating books, do they? And I think that's a very good way to get knowledge, by listening to audio books. And if I had a bit more time myself and a bit more patience some days, I'll definitely do that to increase my knowledge of the Viking and Saxon era. Although I do know a lot, you can always learn more. Oh yes, definitely agree. We'll just keep waiting until somebody else turns up. I know we've got 2 viewers. I don't know if Iric's watching at the moment. He might be at work, or he may be asleep. That's one of our other fellow channel hosts. In the future, I do hope to be, to understand and learn how to do a live stream with Iric, because I think you can invite people. I'm fairly certain. I've seen it somewhere in the settings. If not, we'll have to figure it out for another app, so that we can both do a live stream, and I will appear on this side of the camera and Iric will appear on that side of the camera. And I think that will be very interesting, that we could bounce each of his thoughts about this modern and this fascinating era history. I was going to go say modern then, as a Viking it's not modern, is it? I suppose to the Neolithic age it is, but yes. Of course I'm well tooled up. I've got my sword at hand, I've got a couple of spears just in case. You never know, because if you're living 1,000 years ago, it's just turned 1000 AD, you probably would have your Viking sword at hand and your spears, just in case somebody did burst through the wall, your hall and your doorway. Even worse would be, they barricade you in and burn you down in your longhouse. I imagine that's not a nice way to die. And if you've ever seen The Last Kingdom, that kind of demonstrates that at the very beginning, when they burn down, Uhtred's father's longhouse, and he comes out fighting at the end, and Uhtred gets away, and of course his life begins then. And a really good series is that. I don't need this junk mail. It's another good thing of fire. You can put your junk mail on there, 'cause I don't need that in my life. And some more junk mail. Well, I might keep that one. That's about Festive Derby. I'll look at that first. And I tend to burn a lot of cardboard now and again to get my fire going. I know some people were saying, heresy, burning cardboard. What are you doing, man? Well, I'm surviving. It's cheaper than putting your gas and electric or your heater on. And it does warm up this room quite nicely. So, yeah, I got to join the Discord. I'm not forgotten. It's just that I just got to join it myself. I keep forgetting, because I'm always busy on the go editing videos, and I keep thinking, oh yes, I must join the Discord. That I think, I can't remember, is it Red Tail? Did you start it? I forget now. You have to remind my brain. But I've been meaning to go back into that live stream and look for the actual Discord. So I will try to join it in the next day or so. If not, just keep prompting me about it and remind me in the comments, and I will get back to joining it for the first time, and then I'll put it on my phone, because I'm always busy. And I've also started putting out videos on one of my other channels this week, because I've been meaning to do that on my old it's a gaming channel I've had in mind for a while, and because these commentary videos are quite easy to do, I'm just putting some videos out on that channel as well. This is just me and my voice talking about gaming really, but you may not be interested in that. at some point I will list it in my channel lists. Then the other day I did start 2 other channels as well to start working in the future. One will be called Funky Viking, and I'm going to put most of fail videos on there in the long run. And I'm working on another channel which is a little bit secret at the moment, I'm not going to talk about. But yeah, and I think you like the content I put out yesterday. I put out a much different video. The video is called The Big Molt, and I've had this video on my hard drive for a long time, and I'm fairly certain at some point Jarvis Cocker from Pulp made a video about you know, that sort of traditional crafts of, you know, forging and furnaces to like some really cool dance music. So I remember vaguely seeing that, but I've had that video for a long time, and I wanted to do some a voiceover audio for it, so I kind of incorporated it with a little bit of information about furnaces in the medieval times, and probably badly pronounce a few place names, because that's always one of the challenge when you're talking about something at a place you don't know. You got to try to figure out how to understand how to pronounce it, and it's never an easy thing to do. And so I hope you enjoyed that video. And today we had a very interesting video out at 3 o'clock, where it's a comment from Brewski0277, who left a very good, brilliant comment about Viking small arms and shields and spears and axes. And when I read it, I thought to myself, yeah, this would make a very good video. So I recorded the audio a few weeks back and kind of forgot about it in, you know, the busy time I've been having on the channel and in life in general. And then I saw it the other day and I thought, oh yeah, I must edit that video because it won't take long. And I just put it to some other video, you know, of us, a bit of B-roll fighting to make it more interesting. But if you do have a, you know, if you do leave an interesting long comment on either this video or any other video, and I think to myself, yeah, well, that will make a 2 or 3 minute video, I will read it on camera. And I will make a video out of it, because a lot of you guys have a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, which is quite cool and important to get across. So yeah, always bear that in mind when you write a very long, in-depth, detailed comment, that I could make it into content to benefit the channel and to also benefit everybody else, of course. And if you don't want it being read on, you know, on the channel or made into a video, just say at the and please don't make a video out of this Bragi. But I think it's an interesting way to make videos as well, because at the end of the day, it's all about you guys as well as us on the channel. You know, though Eggle's no longer with us, and Tick is busy working all the time, and so is Iric. You know, it's just not me. It's all about us as a team, as a Northworthy army, and that's another way I can incorporate and involve other people on the channel. So, yes. So, with it being Wednesday, I thought today that perhaps I might grab a book and read you a couple of sections about Odin, because I think that would be quite interesting. Let me know about that, and don't forget, if you do have Discord, and I will join soon, to join the server, lads, as Red Terror Production states. Then got a comment here from Chunky Monkey, the modern scholar, the Norseman, understanding the Viking and their culture. This book talks about the Norse sagas quite a lot, I believe. Some of their stories are very interesting, stroke exciting, yes, and I think that would be also a very good way for me to relearn some of the stories from the Viking sagas, so that I can, you know, tell you those stories, because it's quite difficult. It's all right grabbing, you know, a book on, you know, folk tales, you know, and this is one of many, and I'm sure you agree there's a lot of folk tale, that's just British folk tale, that's upside down. That's an Australian book, that's British. So, and this is one of the 4 books from the Dictionary of British Folk Tales. I'll show you that, by Catherine Briggs. And there's, I think these 4 volumes, there must be thousands and thousands of stories, and perhaps later on I'll find one and I'll demonstrate how I learn a folk tale and tell you a folk tale from reading it a few minutes before I tell it. So let me know about that idea. I know, yeah, you know, and we'll just continue to look at your comments. So I do love reading your comments, and this is partly what this is, you know, this is partly what this live stream is about. I'm getting them. And then Red Tail Productions. I've made a few channels. Chunky is already there, just waiting for you. Oh yeah, so that's great. Always, you know, willing to show your channels. And in the future, if I figure out how to charge my tablet, perhaps I could also review people's channels and give you my honest opinion on your channels and some advice as well on how to improve them. Because let's face it, I've been doing this for a long time, so I do know something. Although, you know, I'm always learning, and I think you do always learn. And if you are a content creator, then don't forget to download the 2 apps I use, which is TubeBuddy and vidIQ. Although vidIQ is by far the best. And I have subscribed to that over the years, but these days I'm just using the free version because I just can't afford to have the subscription. And I kind of figured out, you know, a lot of things from that, and it's definitely been worthwhile. And sometimes I also go into Snapchat, and I'm on there as well. And I use Snapchat as an AI, and the AI is quite good for writing, you know, scripts or writing video titles. So if some days you see me update a video title, when you see, you know, if it starts something like unbelievable or unleashing, then you generally know it's being written by AI, because I think it does write a better video title than most human beings can. I'm just drinking my tea because I'm thirsty. Right, check the old fire. I've got some logs over there. I can go and fetch a log in a bit and put a massive log on the fire. That sounds awful. That sounds a bit rude. And I just got, this is a bit of cherry wood. That's quite nice. Of course, a bit of pine. Very good and full of sap, so that's always good for burning. I've got a little bit of coal. I'm not trying to use too much coal up because I need to buy some more at some point, and I won't do that until the springtime. And don't forget to also share the live stream. That's where we'll reach a bigger and wider audience. And Chunky Monkey says, yes, I meant to log into Discord and check out the new channel. Yeah, well, please do. Because I'm not on Discord yet. I've got to get the app. I've been on Discord over the years, but whenever I used it on my PC, it was always a bit overwhelming and I didn't quite understand it. And then when I used to play on the Xbox, I was in a few Minecraft Discord things, and they used to just bombard you with notifications, and that used to do my head in. So Red Tail Productions says, what do you think of Hengist and Horsa? If I was an Englishman, I'd probably revere them. Well, I think we should revere Hengist and Horsa. But of course, Hengist means stallion and Horsa means horse. So, and that's quite interesting, I think, you know. Because we often think about the Saxons being seafaring people, but yet those two names translate as to do more with cavalry and horses. And of course, the stallions are revered, and so are horses in a lot of cultures. And certainly, is it a throwback to the Iron Age because horses were revered back in those days? But I don't think, there's not enough said about them. We tend to ignore that little bit of history and concentrate on other bits of history. And certainly if you check out what we'll class as education for year 7 or year 8, which is GCSEs, they don't really mention Hengist and Horsa. And surprisingly, I was looking at a curriculum for one of my local schools, and they don't even talk about the Vikings in that curriculum. They just talk about the Saxons, and they get things wrong. First of all, they don't mention the Jutes, or they don't mention the Frisians, and then they were talking about how money was made, and they called the moneyer, as traditionally that's what a coin maker is called, a moneyer. They called him a coin stamper. Well, coin stamping is just a part of the process of making coin, and I don't think anybody would have been described as a coin stamper, because there's such more to making coins than just stamping the coin. I mean, you got to make the design, you got to get your silver in, and if you're not buying it in sheet metal form, which most of the time would not happen, they would have to hammer it down and put it on a fire and keep hammering it down into sheet metal. That all takes a while to manufacture and make. And then you got to make a die to cut out your coins. You don't just tin snip them. They generally, I would think, have a circular coin die to knock out the coin shape. So yeah, and of course we need to really cover that a bit more in detail. Perhaps in the future I'll make a video about Hengist and Horsa and put that on the channel as well. But one of the areas I want to concentrate on is trying to cover some of these common search terms, because certainly I think out of 3 sources where people watch the content, number 1 is shorts, number 2 is playlists, and then number 3 is search. Those are the 3 main areas how people find the channel. And what did you think about the video I put of the Vikings fighting the police? Well, as I call them, the feds. I think I just used that term, the feds, because it's more generic and it catches people's eyes a little bit more than the police. And the police isn't, if you put police in your video title, that can demonetize your video. I thought it was a fascinating video in itself, but I thought it was a little bit timid. And perhaps, you can't exactly go around and properly fight 6 riot squad police officers without getting into trouble. Well, certainly if you go back probably 20 years ago, you probably could do that and give them a bit of a bashing. But in the modern world, where the world's gone completely crazy, I expect those Vikings probably thought to themselves, well, let's not go mad here, lads. Let's just get beat and be done with the video. But I thought it was quite interesting, and I thought the comment from Martin from Belfast was talking about how 20-30 years ago that was a regular thing, beating up the police as a Viking. I assume that was what he was talking about, unless it was when he was in the army, and perhaps the army tested the riot squad, I don't know, but I'd love to get a more in-depth comment about that from Martin. But yeah, and I've got quite a few more videos like that to make, because one of the things and one of the ways you can make content is to use other people's content. Like, for instance, there's nothing to stop you guys from downloading my shorts videos and doing your own commentary to my videos. That's quite acceptable, because you don't get a copyright strike, you don't get no copyright at all generally, as long as you're making that content into your own. If you just download somebody else's video and just upload it without altering the video somehow, then that's a little bit more risky. So we've got Aaron Kelly says hello. Perhaps we should definitely give you the blue spanner as well, Aaron, if you like that, because you've been around for a good while. And you can never have enough people with the Viking blue spanner. I mean, they should make that into an act, really, a blue act for us. But yeah, so hello to Aaron, and please say hello to him. And we've got a comment here, and another comment from an old viewer, Martin Hale. I think a few years ago there was a shield wall versus police. Yeah, I think that's been done quite a few times with various Viking groups. In fact, I can remember Turkey talking about in the 1980s they was invited at an event to test the police shield wall, and they completely annihilated them. And there's no police officers left standing. You might be a little bit more timid about it these days when PC Plod may go round and arrest you for assault. So perhaps that was the reason why, it was a bit timid and a bit farcical. But yet again, it was still a fascinating video. I do have a few videos coming out about giants. Just ignore them if you're not into giants and some of these Tartarian myths, just ignore them. I'm just doing them to kind of boost the channel. And I think it's a fascinating subject, and it does tie in with the Vikings because, you know, let's face it, in Viking myth, you know, where would the stories be without the funny tales about the giants and Thor beating them up? Yeah, so we have a Discord, don't forget that, and we also have merchandise on the channel, which at some point I will update, and I will make some new slogans and various things for the designs. I'm going to have to go on there one of these days and buy one myself, I think. So I can go around wearing it in Derby and advertise the channel by wearing the t-shirt. And Red Tail Productions says I made a few roles for the server. Well, that's great. If I don't go to bed straight after this, I'll definitely download Discord on this mobile and join. So I've just been very, very busy, and my brain often forgets things. I need to write things down on a bit of paper. Join our Discord. But I hope it's a bit more easy to use than it was a few years back. They're going to put a bit of coal on the fire now. Well, what luxury! It makes you think, did the Vikings have coal? We certainly had charcoal. And certainly probably open cast mining to a certain degree was done. And let's face it, you know, the Romans were there before the Vikings in England. And they did a lot of mining. So I expect to a certain degree there was access to coal. Not in the probably large quantities we mine today or used to mine. But let's face it, it's a really good thing to burn. And I'm just branching out. Trying to get a bit warmer. I might put my other coat on. So Martin Hale says, do you still have a TikTok channel? Well, technically there's two TikTok channels. There's the old one, which is NorthworthySagas Stories, which I don't have access to at the moment, but at some point I will get access back to it, and because I need to get access to it to get that to download some of the draft videos, because there's a lot of draft videos available on there. I can use in the future, so that will happen at some point. And then for the meantime, I've just got a kind of a small channel called Bragi Magnuson, where I just use TikTok to make videos for this channel basically, but I don't really go a lot on TikTok. I might go down and look for videos to download to use on this channel, but I need to get back onto that. I mean, the problem is there's so many things you could do, and there's not enough time in the day. I mean, perhaps the gods should make the day 48 hours long. We'll get more done in life. And Brad says, and cow dung for the fire, I should think. Well, yes, again, you know, you got peat, so you could certainly dry your cow pats and use that as a source of fuel, and it would light, and it would, you know, yeah, definitely. I can remember being on camp and using dry cow pats that will just, you know, bone dry. You can snap them and putting them on the fire. So yeah, that's another source of fuel. I mean, I don't think you'll do that with human waste. You know, not exactly going to go and shit in the field and wait 3 months for it to dry, are you? But certainly with cow pats, and there's a lot of straw in cow pats, to be fair, a lot of grass. I can remember once we had a guy on camp. This is not during the Viking times, but I'll tell you a little funny re-enactment story. So we was on camp, and this would be in the 1990s. I was re-enacting the American Civil War, and we had a guy on camp called Huxley, and somebody once dared him to pick up a dry cow pat and eat it, and he did. He put it on his plate and got a knife and fork and put some salt and pepper on it, and he ate a whole entire dry cow pat. I think it was alright, to be fair. Yeah, he didn't die. And then it would just remind you about the Yorkshireman. Yorkshire is a county up north, a very big county, and the Yorkshiremen are famous for wearing a flat cap. I don't really have one to demonstrate, but you know, so one day a Yorkshireman, you know, he's been out working all day, and you know, you think, oh, I'm going to go down to the pub, the local inn, and have a few beers. So, you know, he puts his nice old working jacket on and puts his flat cap on his head and goes down the inn in our times, the mead hall, and has a few jars. And then he's been there all night and he's getting quite drunk at this stage, and he walks back through a field, taking a shortcut instead of walking down a lane. And his flat cap falls off. And before he found it, he tried 20 on. I think I probably told this joke recently. Basically, the joke is basically saying that he tried on 20 cowpats before he found his own hat. I mean, he was a bit of a barn pot, to be fair, which is a Yorkshire saying or Lancashire saying for somebody that's a bit daft. A barn pot. Ah, that means a barn pot. So Red Terror says, I have a skibidi toilet in my bathroom. I swear I saw a head coming out of it. It was crazy. I'm going to have to really search that term up because I can't really picture what a skibidi toilet is. But, I imagine if you see a head coming out of a toilet, you'll probably shit yourself again. Pardon the language. But and then Brad says it must stink though, and that is referring to the fact that you're putting cow dung on a fire. Well, it probably would do, yeah, but then again you might stink as well to a certain degree. That they didn't bathe all the time. This is where this comes the idea about bathing once a week. So, and then you got all the smells of the fire and the wood and all around you. It reminds you of going to the York Museum when they take you around a little train through the underground recreation of Viking York, and you got all these smells coming out at you, which they recreate. But I mean, the Viking times and the Saxon times were definitely smelly to a certain degree. Then Red Terror says, maybe if I flush down the toilet, the guy's head on the toilet might go away. Might be a good idea. I can't stand it. It keeps saying skibidi. Boop, boop, yes, yes. Yeah, that's a weird thing, isn't it? And of course, in the Viking times, you probably had a outside toilet, probably a bit like you see in the Wild West, a little hut, little square, little building perhaps. I mean, definitely if you've got a settlement, you definitely want somewhere to regularly go and go to your toilet, and they'd have a bench over the top of it, and when the pit gets filled up, they'll fill the pit in and make another one somewhere else. Well, unless they have somebody to go into the pit and actually dig out all the feces and all the crap, which is not a very nice job. Personally, I think I'll just fill it in and make a new toilet. And of course, a lot of the people in those times had worms, so you're dealing with worms hanging out your backside, which is not a very pleasant thing, of course, because you've got to be careful what you eat. And even in today, you can go foraging, and if you don't wash your food properly, you do run that risk of getting worms. And they're not the most easiest thing to get rid of. In today, they are. You go to the chemist and you buy some worm tablets, and you take them, and I assume they'll go and get rid of and kill your worms. Or even worse, if you've got a tapeworm, you probably have to go to your doctor for that. But in those times, you can't exactly go and knock on the door and get a tablet to get rid of your worms. So it's something you probably put up with for the rest of your life. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why they went east, raiding to get the spices, because you always do say a good chili knocks out your worms, but I don't believe that. I always do believe though, if you get a cold and have a good chili kebab, and have a few beers, that helps. But that's just me. So Martin Hale says, what is it like doing American Civil War reenactment? Well, it's a lot different to the Viking era. Perhaps sometime in the future I might start making some content about it, but It's a fascinating era, war. And of course, you're all marching in column of 4s or 2s, you know, and then you're fighting in those traditional kind of lines, which we'll see from you know the probably from the 15th century on to the late part of the 19th century. Probably after the Crimea War, that kind of thing went out of fashion. Maybe the Franco-Prussian War, but a fascinating era of history. And it's not just that; it's also the social life you get with it, and the fact that you you've got a big society, and generally a lot bigger than the Viking societies, and you make a lot of friends, and you have a lot of good times, and a lot of the evening events are all about drinking beer, having a good laugh, and singing the songs, and yeah, and perhaps I may do a live stream where I sing you a few songs from the Civil War. I think that'll be an interesting live stream, me singing you a few sea shanties. I was thinking the other day, I was singing one in the shower, and I thought to myself, well, it's one called The Mermaid. I thought to myself, well, I could quite easily convert this to the Viking times, really. So perhaps I'll sing a few songs but make them into more of a Viking song, and try to, because we don't know about the music really from that time, because we don't have it recorded. It's a shame. So we've got a couple more comments here. And Brad says, they got that smelly thing and waxworks in the Warwick Castle, and when you walk past part of the castle that has the horses, you can smell manure. They used to live with the horses in the castle. But of course, in the old longhouse, you may have a section of your longhouse at the back, which is more of a barn for bringing your animals in the winter, so you would live with your animals, and that's very much like the way of living with the Scottish crofts. The cottages where you have your living quarter where you live, and at the other side of it, the other end, you have your animals, and sometimes you'll have a wall in between, and sometimes not, just a small wooden divide. So you would be smelling manure, and you would be smelling all those smells, and the smell of the whey and all that. And let's face it, there's nothing more smelly than a damp horse or a damp cow, let alone damp sheep. It's like smelling a wet dog. Wet dogs have a certain smell. And it's a bit like, when the farmers are spreading muck across the fields, you can smell it from miles away. And you think, oh God, what's that pong? And we've all been, driving down a motorway in a car when you suddenly smell, that manure smell in the air, because it's that time of year when the farmers are mucking the fields. Let's face it, they need all the help and nutrients that they can get. And then Spooky Name says, what do you think of the Irish, and particularly some Irish saint missionaries reaching North America in the early Middle Ages before the Norse? Have you heard of this theory? Well, yes, I have. And I think it's probably a true theory. Because let's face it, we talk about the Vikings being well travelled, but the Viking, the Irish monks were even more well travelled, because they would make a little conical round ship. It would be a wicker-based wooden structure, made of wicker, willow, or hazel, and leather and tard, and they'll take a few provisions with them, and they'll basically get in it, and wherever it landed, they would build a church. This is how they found Iceland before the Vikings did. And of course, the famous story is that the Irish monks found or landed on Iceland, but when the Vikings came, they decided to leave because nobody wants to live with a load of Vikings on your doorstep. So the idea that the Irish monks could have gotten a conical and somehow landed on the North American coast is a true possibility. And we think about people travelling, but nobody probably travelled as far as the Polynesians, because the islands are 1,000 miles apart, but yet they knew how to navigate. And I find that to be fascinating. But you can't talk and drink at the same time. Hello, this is me. You can't do it. It's impossible. So you get this awkward moment of silence when you're having your drink from your cup of tea. but I'm thirsty and I got a drink. I'm British. Ah, it's done now. Oh yes. But I thought, well, you know, that's why I was about 3 or 4 minutes late on this live stream, because I was basically making a cup of tea. I got another drink up there. So we've got a comment here from Milkman. Oh, I've not seen Milkman for ages on the channel. How do, Bragi? Where do you have your Civil War training? Which side did you fight on and stroke re-enact? Well, mostly there's two societies in the UK. You got SOSCAN, which is the Southern Skirmish Society, and they're based down south. And then you had the society I was in, which was the American Civil War Society. If you type in ACWS, you will see the society, and if you look on the old, you know, picture thread, you'll probably find pictures of me, and you can't miss me because I'm wearing bright red trousers because I'm a chasseur and light infantry, and I was in a very unique regiment called the 14th Brooklyn New York State Militia. So I hung about with those guys and did that for many, many years. So I was a Unionist, not a Confederate. Although I've always fancied having a go at being Confederate, I must say. And sadly, you know, the society isn't as big as it used to be. Back in the 90s and the late 80s, there would have been 3,000 or 4,000 people in the society. And now it's probably only 200 or 300 now, because it's just reenactments has changed so much. And it's, you know, like I said, it's a fascinating era of history. And you think to yourself, well, what's he got to do with Britain? What's he got to do with Derby, where I come from? Well, when General Lee signed the peace treaty at Appomattox, you go outside on the veranda, you know, the wooden veranda, there was a man outside from Derby, a Union man. And he came back in the 1870s and he wrote about it. And when they from Derby, about 30 to 40 men fought from Derby itself. And my regiment, the 14th, our most local man was from Leicester, about 30 miles away. So it does show you, you know, and the British government at the time kind of playing the game of sponsoring both sides. They sent guns to the south and they sent guns to the north. And they were playing that kind of political game of not trying to back either one, but back both. Because if the south won, then the British Empire would have wanted to trade with the south, because the south produced a lot of you know, cotton. And if you go to Liverpool and Manchester, you'll find statues of Abraham Lincoln, because all the workers went on strike in support of the war, mostly with the north rather than the south. And of course, you know, Birkenhead in Wales is where a lot of these ships were made, including, you know, famous ships for the Confederacy and famous ships for the Union. So there's, you know, it's more local than what we think. And of course, Frenchmen and Irishmen and Germans and Austrians. I mean, I was talking about it the other day. They even had a regiment, the Union, of Chinese men, which they sent to China to help raise money from the Chinese, you know, empire at the time, to help preserve the Union. So yeah. We'll have a look at your comments, make sure I've not missed any. So we've got a comment here from Brad. Brad, I love Ireland. I've been there to Blarney Castle, and I kissed the Blarney Stone. It's terrifying. Yeah, I've never been to that part of Ireland. One day I'll go and I'll film it. And then Brad says they hang you upside down by your legs and lower you down this enormous drop. It's only then you see the stone. Then quickly kiss it. Well, what? I didn't know that. I know Eggle, he went there at one point in his past. And then Spooky Name says, I also agree that the theory is likely true. It was written that St. Brendan reached a land to the west beyond Iceland, but it was desecrated in the modern consensus. Well, that was probably Greenland. To be fair, if you can get to Iceland, then in theory you can get to Greenland and Newfoundland in northern Canada. It does make perfect sense. Let's face it, the currents in the Atlantic are quite strong, so why not, you know, And the thing is, you know, it was bloody brave, pardon my swearing, of these monks to do that, just getting a small little conical ship, no more than 2 meters wide, and perhaps there'll be 3 or 4 of you, and you just, you know, hope that you're going to land on some new land where you can build a church. I think it's a very brave thing to do, braver than the Vikings, because, you know, the Vikings had long ships, and that was probably a better protection than their little conical ship. And it does make you think how many monks would have died in that process of trying to, you know, spread Christianity. I mean, the Vikings weren't doing the same thing. They were just trying to go for word fame and get more gold and silver. And of course, land also played the part because they needed to leave Scandinavia to get more land, and because of the inheritance system of how the first son generally inherited the father's land, the rest of the family were you know, needed to go and have adventures and find their own land. So Spooky Name says, I know Aaron Kelly says, I would love to go to Ireland someday. Yeah, I'd like to go back again and sing a few Irish songs and have a good tour around and film it for you guys. And then Spooky Name says also there are some intriguing linguistic similarities to some Eastern North American native languages and names, as well as the site in West Virginia where there's possibly an Irish Ogham writing. But of course, you know, they say that the Scottish Knight Templars also got to America way before Columbus, and I can kind of see that as being a true theory as well. If you ever see the TV series The Curse of Oak Island, and they've still not really found what they've been looking for, hopefully one day we're going to get an answer to what's actually buried there, because something's definitely gone on. Whether it's, you know, a load of gold, you know, I don't really understand why you'd spend all that time digging a big mine shaft and booby traps to bury a load of gold, but then again, not in the mindset of our ancestors. But they do talk about it, you know, and some of the Scottish connections pre-Columbus of them founding America or finding that part of America. So it does make you think. You know, it also makes, you know, some people say have a theory that, you know, actually the Romans actually travelled that far. You know, probably by accident. Let's face it. If you're in a Roman ship, and you got blew off course, and you ended up in North America, why not? You know, of course, until they find a load of remains of Romans in North America, we're never going to know that answer. But we also live in an age where there's a lot of secrecy about archaeology, and they don't want you to fundamentally know the truth, because it can be quite shocking. Because, you know, American culture and history takes a lot of pride in Columbus, so that's probably why they don't want you to know that the Vikings got there first, because it kind of, you know, it kind of knocks that Columbus idea and the whole idea of the founding fathers, of course. And then Chunky Monkey says, be right back. I need to restart my computer. Well, there's nothing worse when your computer freezes up. I'm probably like it, you know, stuck in a frozen view on your camera, on your mobile, on your PC. Well, I nearly got that right. And then Brad says, when the Vikings settled in Greenland, there was a mini global warming going on, and the temperature was a lot warmer back then. So there was lots of green land with no snow on the coast. Yes, I was talking about this earlier. The fact that you know, you go back 1,000 or 1,200 or 1,400 years ago, you know, sea levels were higher and the climate was warmer. So, you know, climate change is not a new thing. We've lived through that, you know, as a humanity before, and we'll live through it again. Of course, back in those days, there wasn't a small minority of people owning everything like the 1% do, which is a whole other subject on itself, if you believe in that sort of thing. Whether, you know, and it's not a conspiracy, because we do know that the 1% of the population on the planet own most of the wealth, and that's fundamentally wrong. But it's us, the people, put up with it, and we don't do nothing about it. And I'm not saying go out there and cause trouble, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you need to wake up to what's going on in the world, because if we don't wake up and we don't question what's going on in the world, we're going to end up in the worst situation. which we don't want. And then Spooky Name says, or perhaps the Carthaginians, possibly many people from the past accidentally crossed the Atlantic never to return. Well, yes, that could be fundamentally true. You know, we just don't really know. And another fascinating culture that is. And Spooky Name says, and as for the Polynesians, we know that they were able to cross the Pacific, as we have found traded gods with Polynesian origin in South America, as well as a genetic link. Very fascinating. I think I watched a documentary about the ancient Chinese also discovering America on the west coast. I think was they found some ancient Chinese ships, and that's not really talked about enough. And I think that's quite fascinating as well. And of course, you have all these very strange, remains of white people that have been found throughout America. Not loads of them, just a handful, which are just completely out of place. So what's all that about? One day we'll have the truth, and it will all come out. Bear with me, I'm going to get a log. I'm not very long. Ow. It's my hips playing up. So I had to get in a log. This was from down my workshop. That'll keep me nice and warm. I won't need to put my jacket on, my Eastern coat. Well, I suppose I could put it on. We'll put this on. I'll show you how to put one of these on camera. I'll tell you what, it's lovely and warm. And let's face it, as a Viking, you would wear everything you got to keep warm. There we go. Sorry, nearly knocking my drink over. I'm talking about the American Civil War. I've got something quite interesting here. This is my Civil War bayonet, and this is actually original from the war. And I thought we could do a little talk about this compared to a sea axe. Although I think probably a spear is more relevant in this kind of a situation. Oh, there's that fucking alarm again. So I don't know what will be more of a better comparison: a spear, a sea axe, to a bayonet. Because a bayonet is for pointing and stabbing into people, they look like a spear. So in my mind, I think that's a better comparison. And as you can see from this one, as the alarm goes off and does me head in, damn you, Loki! This one was quite bent, you can see. So at some point, this has probably been into a body, because this is original from the Civil War. It's an Enfield bayonet. Could do with a bit of a clean, like a lot of things I own. But you can definitely see that bend there, because these are normally quite straight. But one of the things you'd use these for in the Civil War, when you're camping at night and in your shelter hearth, you stick this in the ground and you use a candle in this, and you can buy a little copper mountain to go on top of this, put your candle in. But a lot of soldiers didn't have them, so they'll basically stick this in the ground, and then they'll put the candle at this end, and then use it as a candle holder. And of course this goes on an Enfield, and the Enfield being a British rifle, which both the Confederacy and the Union used. But how does it compare to a spear? Now on this you've got blood channels, and you may not see it, but you can see the kind of the concave structure of the blade, so it goes into the body and you're able to put it out. If it was just straight, it may stick. So they also, generally made it in that purpose. And it's also concave on this section, and you can probably see how bent that is. Again, it's bent here at this section. So it probably killed somebody this in the Civil War. And it's a fascinating bit of kit. And of course, it's got the holder. It goes on your left-hand side of the body. So you can draw it out and fasten it onto your end of your musket if you're given the command. And that's another original bayonet holder. But I thought it's an interesting comparison, you know. But let's face it, you got a good 5 foot long rifle, and it makes it about 6 foot long when you got your bayonet on. I prefer a sword bayonet than one of these myself, but the sword bayonet does look more sexier on your musket. But again, fascinating, and it's got a little mechanism for locking it on, so that you can twist this round and it locks onto your musket, and you're not going to drop off. The first lot of bayonets ever invented, probably during the you know, I'll probably say, English Civil War, were more plug bayonets, and they plugged into your barrel itself. Not the best idea in the world if you've got to use your you know, musket. So the idea of this is that you can have this on your rifle, or your musket in this case, and you can still shoot your musket as it's got a hole. But yeah, I do have some sword bayonets, just not that hand. But at some point I will make a video comparing a sword bayonet to a Viking sword, or maybe, you know, I got some modern machetes, but this is more of a machete, and this is Germanic. This is early, sorry, 5th, 6th century, rather than a later Viking one. It's one of my new ones I've got. So technically I still got to unbox this at some point. But yeah, I thought I'd share that with you. I'll hold my spear just in case some Norman comes in and I can chuck this at him and end the Norman. You know, I wonder how many Normans were called Norman. And yeah, I've got a few comments there to go back, so bear with me. And then Spooky Name says, I'm familiar with the Chinese ship theories, but not sure if there's anything to support it, but it's possible. Well, I'm fairly certain at some point they found a Chinese ship on one of the beaches. It's one of those forbidden documentaries about forbidden history. But it does make you think, you know. I mean, could that have been something else? And when you think about these ships that were made from straw, you know, round and wrapped together like the Egyptians. I've got one somewhere, a model, but it's not in this room. Perhaps for another day we could talk about that. And then Aaron Kelly says, imagine how different the world would look if the Chinese were the ones to colonise America instead of the British. Well, it would look completely different. And we would live in a completely different, you know, world, definitely. You know, they would be the dominant superpower, which they want to be right now. But China, you know, like a lot of these countries, have a massive problem, and they have a population problem, and it's a population bomb in many aspects, because, you know, traditionally in the world we have a pyramid structure of population. With at the top of the pyramid is your old people, and as you get younger there's more people, but we've got a reverse pyramid. So in this case there's too many old people and there's not enough young people, and so that's going to be massive problems for people like China and Russia in the future. In a couple of generations time they're not going to have the population they need to survive and to get past their current situation. And I find that to be quite fascinating. The fact that, you know, we talk about, oh, there's too many people on this planet, but yet we've got, and we have it in the West as well. The West has the same problem where we've got the reverse pyramid, where there's too many old people living and not enough young people having children. I'm partly responsible for this because I've got no children, and I should have children by now in my life, but just that things haven't really worked out that way. So yes, that's another fascinating theory. And then Brad says, most of the third world countries are doing a lot better these days and making their own wealth. Africa is the problem. They still have poor people and no one does anything about it. And that's one of the reasons why the Chinese and the Russians have been investing heavily into Africa, because it's going to be one of those growing, developing, you know, continents in the world. And they've got a lot of resources. So Jeff the Spade says, hello Bragi. And Jester of Spades says, "Meh, Confederates are cooler." Well, I must say, when it compared to nightlife on this camp, Confederates had more fun than the Union guys. So the Confederates would always get me over and say, "Come on, Andy," that's my name in real life, "come and sing us a few songs." So I'll always be sat around the Confederate camp singing songs all night, and they generally have more fun. And because I was a red-leg devil, you're in the middle of the battlefield and all I can hear is, "Get the red leg!" Because I was very popular and I was much loved by the Confederacy. And then, yeah, so Jester of Spades, do you have any sword bayonets? I do, but I don't have them on me at the moment. And then Jester of Spades says, "Plug bayonets were awful, laughed out loud," and I must agree. I mean, essential for back in the day, but not a brilliant design at all. Just to plug a bayonet under your musket. Or doglot, the earlier pre-musket. And then we got a comment from Upper10. "Hello, all beautiful people. Skal." Well, Skal, and cheers to you, my friend. And Jester of Spades says, "I have 2 Martin Henry rounds from the late 19th century and have a late medieval stone shot bullet from around the Wars of the Roses time, 15th century. Well, that's very cool. A friend of mine, Nigel, it was on holiday in Cromer, and he was out in the sea, and he was looking around and he found a medieval stone cannonball that he has in his house, and it's like the most roundest thing you've ever seen, made from stone. And fascinating, the fact that, people would have been making these things, for a job. And then Upper10 says, "Jester of Spades, that's cool." And then Brad says, "I think India has the most young people in the world. That's why they say they're going to overtake China in the near future as the world financial power." So what you're saying about China is true. Well, yeah, that's definitely true about India. I do have probably one of the biggest populations and the biggest population of young people because they have big families. And the fact that, China is at this stage when the Chinese empire as we know it is fundamentally collapsing. And this is why Russia is doing what it's doing in Ukraine, because it's all about Russia collapsing and Russia's getting to the end of its current empire. And Russia does this every 100 or so years. And you've got to think about Russia as a land, it's a big land, big, long and wide, but only the central bit of Russia is really good for crops. The north, well, too cold, the south part of Russia, a whole lot of that's desert. And so the reason why Russia was going after Ukraine is A, for crops, and B, for people, because it needs people and it needs more food. And Ukraine is the breadbasket of that part of the world. So it's about the big geopolitical picture, and it's also about the fact that Russia is getting on its knees when it comes to being a superpower. It's had its day, fundamentally, and it's got to reinvent itself. But, we're not here to talk about the geopolitical politics of the world. But, and you got to feel sorry for anybody living in Ukraine or any part of the world where they're having wars at the moment. Because, war just equals more war and more people die. But, yeah, don't forget to like this video and this live stream. And, yes, and share it out to your friends. And you've got any questions, anything, quite relevant you want to ask me, that would be great. As I go for my second, I got some, what have I got in here? It's like a peachy drink, hot peachy drink. It's quite nice. This is my Civil War mucket. So this is a stainless steel one, more of a modern interpretation. But this is the sort of thing the Union soldiers would have carried. We call these muckets, and they're great for drinking your beer out of. But you could also fry your bacon and get a bit of soup on the go, or cook a bit of food, and got many uses. You can make porridge in this as well from your hardtack. You know what hardtack is? It's just square bits of it's basically flour with a bit of salt, and it's baked in the oven, or you know, they would have had big industrial ovens and it just would last for years. In fact, I got some hardtack in my attic, which is like 20 years old, and I kid you not, there'd be nothing wrong with it. You know, it's all sealed and wrapped in paper. You know, it may have a few paper mites, I'm not bothered about them, but you better eat it if you're desperate enough. Lovely. Let's give my old fire a poke. As you can see, I'm right next to a little wood stove because I'm trying to keep warm. And I thought I'd film down here for a change instead of upstairs. So I think we'll get to the point of the video where I'm going to read a little bit about Odin. Let's have a look, see if I can find something to read. And this is a book called Scandinavian Mythology. And it's by H.R. Ellis Davidson. And it's a very good book. I do recommend it, or any of her books. She's like a little old granny. I don't think she's around anymore. I assume that she would have passed away. But yeah, and there's lots of sections about Odin. Let's see if we can find something. Hang on. We've got a section here about the, perhaps I'll read this about the fall of Odin. I was going to try to find a section about the cult of Odin, which I think is a bit of a myth in my mind, as it is Odin's Day. But perhaps we'll just read this section and then we can discuss that a little bit. Because I've been thinking about doing this for a while, about perhaps just reading a few seconds from books, or even perhaps a whole book on a live stream. So the fall of Odin. There's little doubt that it is on Odin and the defeat of the champions that the main emphasis is laid. The fight with the wolf, the battle between the hosts, and the binding of Loki being all linked with this. The fates of other gods in the Voluspa appeared to be an extension of this tradition, further developed by Snorri from his hints found in other myths. For example, Thor's battle with the serpent and Heimdall's fight with Loki are brought into the Ragnarok scene, and Freya, who gave his sword away for the wooing of Gerd. It is said that the weaponless, when they meet Surt, the significance of the story of the last battle, however, is the ending of the old order, when the gods go down fighting against the odds too great for them. And that's very true. I mean, Ragnarok, they're vastly outnumbered, but let's not forget that Snorri is writing from a Christian point of view. But who is Snorri writing for and writing these tales for? Which is one of the questions I often think. So the civilization precariously set up by the man destroyed by the forces he has long lost kept in check and overwhelmed by water and fire, which once nourished and preserved him. This is a characteristic comment on the vulnerability and mutability of human achievement. I find that quite fascinating in itself. But there is a very good section here about the cult of Odin. And perhaps if we can find that, I'll read a little bit of that about that. But let's not forget, it is Odin's Day, and may Odin bless you all with great wisdom. We'll go back and read some more of your comments. We've got a comment here from Jasper Spade. I think it was the Battle of Killiecrankie in 1690, when the Dutch Williamite soldiers were caught off guard by Scottish Highlanders and were unable to fire on the approaching Highland charge because of their plug bayonets, and were all massacred by the Scots. But it's not a fundamental difficult thing to get your bayonet unplugged, but if your bayonet is stuck in the end of your musket and you're trying to faff about doing that, then those few seconds and minutes could be a disaster for any troop. And let's face it, a lot of things were made brilliantly in those days. And then Offerten says, when I was a child, I collected World War II stuff from bunkers and wreckage in the forest. Consider myself lucky to have survived. Ha ha ha. Well, yes, I suppose, you know, there's lots of stuff around. I mean, there's that very good channel called World War Two History Hunter, I think it is called, and he shows you a lot of bunkers where a lot of stuff is still left in there. You know, the actual part of the bunkers itself, rather than, you know, like machine guns. You don't really find them left in bunkers. They've all gone and probably been scrapped or put in, you know, in somebody's house as a souvenir. But some of these places can be quite deadly, and you have to be very careful. But you know, it does show you how you know how fast the building, you know, of the Nazis was to be building all these bunkers along, you know, the main front against the west. And then Jester Spade says at Upper Town, wow, must have been fun though, ha ha. And then Brad says, can you speak Anglo-Saxon? Well, no, not really. I mean, I could certainly read you Anglo-Saxon, but I can't fundamentally speak it. And I need to really learn how to pronounce some of the difficult words and the language to get on top of it before I start learning Saxon. The problem is there's not enough time in the day to do that, unfortunately. I mean, I certainly know some words, like thank you thee, which is I thank you in Saxon. Then Alphaton says, very fun, we found so much that we played war with everything we found. Oh yeah, I find that to be fascinating. As I said, if you ever check the channel like World War II History Hunter, you'll see him. He's a German guy, I think, and he goes out with his lad and sometimes his daughter, and they go explore these amazing World War II bunkers on the Atlantic front. And you know, it's unbelievable what they built and the lengths they went to, and what's been, you know, what's remained and is still there, especially in Norway and that part of the world. So yeah, I'm not surprised by that. I mean, that's something Egil would have truly loved, because he loved that part of history, and he was very much into collecting World War II memorabilia. You know, British, German, French. You know, he had it. He had a lot of stuff, a lot of really cool, especially medals. He loved medals. And how much we missed the little chap and his little smile, because he always made my day when I saw him. Put some more wood on the fire. I started out, it was 13.1, it's now 16.6. So it just show you, it's heating up my house a little bit as I use my knife, sea axe, to open the back of that. And of course, if you've got a fire like that, you can cook up that and you can boil water. So if you get a power cut, essential. Definitely. Yeah. Just think about all those German things you would have found. Yeah, and it's probably still lots to be discovered as well. I mean, a lot of these bunkers got buried after the war, got sealed up. So there's bound to be bunkers left out there with still stuff in. It's just that they're not being found, and let's face it, the Germans built some massive structures. So Jester Spade says, I'm certainly enjoying winter here in the UK. Well, so far it's not been too bad. It's been a bit stormy, isn't it, and a bit wet. Getting a bit fed up of all these wet days we're having. But I think we're going to go for a dry, cold spell end of November, and then towards beginning of next year it's going to go much colder. And then it's going to possibly get a chance of snow in the new year. So Jester Spade says, do you know any good ghost stories? Yeah, well, I've read one or two. I don't think this has got ghost stories in this book. What does this cover? This covers devils, black dog stories. They're all covered in various subjects. Fairies. Lots of fairy stories in this one. But black dog stories are quite fascinating. Oh, ghost stories. There are some ghost stories in here. I could read you one of these, if not a very long one. Well, I did tell one recently. It was about a Viking ghost, and I think the story goes that once upon a time in the old days of Scotland, there was an old farmer, and I know, he had his old wife, and they lived on a small farmstead on the coast. And this goes back a long time, 1,000 years or more. And there was that one day, going to the sea to get some seaweed, because he used to dry it and use it for various things, as well as on the fire. He used to dry it for that and use it in the food, make bread with seaweed. And they was walking down the coast, and they saw a dead body on the beach. Well, at first I thought he may have been alive. They hoped so. They went over, but no, this was a drowned Viking sailor, and they didn't know what to do. So they decided to get the horse and cart and brought it down to the beach, and they put the dead body on the back, and they buried him. Oh, not far from their longhouse. And some time passed. And then one day, this old farmer got up one night, and to his surprise, he saw the ghost of this sailor, this Viking sailor, sat around his table. And he was saying, or murmuring to himself, so you must bury me properly with my gold and my silver. Because they took the gold. He had a leather sack like this, and it was full of gold and full of silver. No doubt this Viking's been raiding probably to the east or Francia or even Ireland, and had come back, and the longship got wrecked, and he ended up on the coast of Scotland. And so they didn't know what to do. And again, a few days passed, and they saw the ghost again walking around this old croft or his old longhouse, and it started to unsettle them. So at first they thought, well, we're going to go to the local town and get a priest, and perhaps we'll give him a good Christian burial again, and say some words over his grave. And so they went off, and they found one of the local priests, and he was willing to come. They gave him a few silver coin, because that's what priests were like in those days. They wanted a bit of money for travelling, so they said, I'll come along and I'll in a few days, and we'll say some words over the grave, and hopefully that will end your ghost. And nothing happened. The ghost kept on returning. Again, one night his wife got up, or a whiff in Anglo-Saxon is where the word comes from, and she saw the ghost. You must return my gold and my silver to my grave, because Vikings wanted grave goods to go to Valhalla. He also had an axe, and they kept the axe for themselves. The ghost kept on saying, "Where's my axe? Where is my axe?" And so, again, they didn't know what to do. They pondered over it, and they thought, well, this time we're going to go and get a bishop, because perhaps the priest wasn't, powerful enough in his wisdom. So they went to another town, a bit bigger than the other town he went to, and they found the bishop in a big church, and said, we've got a bit of a ghost problem from this Viking sailor that we found. We buried him on the land, but we kept his axe, and we kept his silver and his gold, and he keeps turning up as a ghost and a spirit. So he said, oh, I'll come along in 2 weeks' time when I'm free on a Sunday. I will say some words over his grave, and hopefully that will end your problems. Because we all know that the problems and the ghost did not go away. And again, all the locals who lived near them kept on hearing about this ghost stories. Quite a few people came in the evening to see the ghost, and the ghost sometimes appeared, and sometimes the ghost did not appear. But nevertheless, it scared these people, this old couple. Well, you know, the man was long in the beard by this stage in his life. The last thing you want when you're getting towards the end of your life is a ghost living in your house. Especially one of a Viking going around saying, give me my axe and give me my gold and my silver. And so it got to the point where they had no choice but to bury the axe they kept, and bury the silver and gold they had left over. And in the end, this was how the ghost of the Viking sailor was gotten rid of. And once they buried the gold, and once they buried the silver and his axe, the good bearded axe, the ghost never appeared again. Myself, I probably would have lived with the ghost and kept the silver and the gold and kept the axe. Let's face it, a good axe is worth good money in those days, and good amount of iron. But that is the story of the old Viking ghost sailor. But it does make you think. I love a good ghost story. Because if you go on the channel, we do have a playlist of scary stories and scary ghost stories. And perhaps, you know, I will record a few more of these ghost stories in the future for the winter months to keep you busy. So Chunky Monkey says, what I like about winter is you don't have to hear your neighbours anymore. Well, yeah, well, what I like about winter is staying in and keeping warm and not having to go out too much, you know, apart from for work or to get some food or to go and get some beer. But apart from that, you tend to stay in more. And I think I must have been a bear in the past life, because I quite fancy living in a cave with a load of straw and cuddling up in my cave next to my bear girlfriend and you know, sleeping for quite a few months. I think that would be quite nice. But I do tend to hibernate in the same sense of I don't go out a lot in winter time, and perhaps that's a very old thing that goes back, you know, in humanity a long way, because if you live in the west and it's cold in the winter time, perhaps it's a very old generic thing not to go out, because if you're staying in, you're safer. You're not going to get cold in the elements. You're not going to get those cold bugs. So therefore, you're going to live a much longer and happier life because you stayed in. Then Jester Spade says creepy, and Jester Spade says, oh, good story. And Opperten says, a good story there, Bragi. Oh yes, I think I did another version of it. It was a bit longer, about 13 minutes long on the channel, from early this year or last year. I've got an itchy back now. But yeah, trying to think of any others. Normally I know quite a few stories, but I can't recall that many ghost stories. Of course, there's a ghost story from Derby, where I live, you know. So back in the day when Derby, the city I come from, was a town, we had the first factory in the world. We're famous for this, and it's called the Silk Mill, and it's one of the first industrial factories from the 18th century. And one day I'll take you around and I'll film, because it is now a museum. It's called the Museum of Making. In fact, you know, I think you may have seen it in a video where Egon stood outside. But this factory has a very long and tall tower, a square tower at the front. And back in the day, when it was a silk, you know, when it was in producing a lot of silk and producing a lot of cotton, it used to employ children as workers, and they would go along, you know, under the machines and collect all the loose bits of cotton and the silk, you know, because it was a fire hazard. So children were employed a lot in those times. And it's got like 3 floors with industrial machines on each floor. And so back in the day, a long time ago, you know, when they employed young boys to do a job, there used to be a very nasty foreman, very bad tempered. And then one day he had a problem with this one lad, a young boy. He was very naughty, wouldn't do his job properly, and so when he had an argument with him one day at the top of this tower, he kicked him down the tower stairs until the boy actually died. And many people who have worked there and lived there said they have seen a ghost in the tower of a young boy. I used to go there back in the day when I was a teenager. It used to be Derby Wargame Club on the top floor. And one or two people who went to that club over the years have seen this ghost of a young lad. And it does make you think whether it's true. Well, we do know the story is true. And where I come from, Derby, it is the most haunted city in the whole of England. There are more ghosts in Derby than any other city, and we are very famous for it. There's a place not far from me called the Markeaton Brook, and back in the day, in the old Victorian times, it used to be the West End of Derby, where all the workers lived. So all the houses were crammed together in the small crammed Victorian streets. And the brook of Markeaton, which most of it now is covered over, but there's quite a few brooks in Derby, but you do not see them because they're all being covered over in time. All being, you know, what's that one, when they build culverts over them and they brick them up. And so lots of women in those times, you know, are said to have got in trouble. They would have ended up at a young age getting pregnant. And of course, infancy deaths were very high in those times in the 19th century. And so, and then some women and some girls would not want to have a baby. And so many a child and many a baby, whether alive or dead, were thrown into the brook at Markeaton. And often in the past, people have heard the crying sounds of children and babies when they walk along this stream. Now, in the modern world today, there are lots of nice modern flats. All those houses were knocked down after the war. On one side you got modern apartments, and the other side you have flats for students who go to Derby University. Now, it is said about one of the rooms is haunted, and often when the cleaners at the end of the season, when the students go home, they have to make sure that there are no notes left for the next students, because often the student who stays in a certain room in this building, a certain room which is very well known for being haunted, they often leave notes like saying, "To the next student living in this apartment, I would like you to know that this apartment is very haunted." And so the cleaners are always told to make sure that there are no secret notes left or hidden. And it makes you think, if you're the student coming to Derby to start university and you end up in this one apartment, you will be quite scared. Now, another famous story from Derby is about the Friargate Hotel. Now, Friargate is an old part of the town. And of course, gate is the old Viking word for street or road. I tend to think it's more for street or gata. And Friargate is built on an old monastery. And Friargate Hotel is a very old building dating back to the 16th century. In the old days, it used to be a lovely hotel. Now it's a nightclub. Back in my time when I was clubbing, it was called It's a Scream. But I assure you agree that living in or staying in a hotel which is haunted by monks is not a nice experience. And there's a couple of ghost stories about this place. First of all, it has a basement, And when back in the day there was extending the basement, they kept on coming across graves of monks. When they looked at the old planning and the old maps, they realised that they was building on the old graveyard of the monastery, and so they bricked it off and only built on half of it, because they didn't go any further back, for there'll be more graves and it will upset more of these old monks. I'm sure you agree. You wouldn't really want to have, you know, your basement next to an old burial ground, but yet they, you know, it is often said that this basement is very haunted. Quite a few people have worked there, and, you know, I've been down in the basement and they see a black robed figure of a monk walking through the walls. In fact, there was a man, his name was Fred, and he worked there in the 1950s and 60s. And he talked about, many years after that, he talked about one experience when he was going down into the cellar to get some wine, and he saw this very figure of a ghost of a monk walking down the corridor and walking through the walls. He was so scared, it is said, that he never went down there again alone, and always asked for people. Another time, back in the 1990s, they was doing a lot of electrical work down there, and down the cellar there's a very small room, and this electrician was working away when suddenly his equipment stopped working. He could not get his drill working, and the door behind him in this small room shut, and it all went dark. And so he managed to get his lighter, and he lit his lighter to get some light to find the door. And stood right before him was a figure in a black robe, faceless, often ghosts are faceless. And that electrician, well, he dropped his tools and he ran upstairs to the main floor, and he refused to go back down to that cellar. In fact, the people he was working for had to go and send him to Burton on Trent instead for another job, because he refused to go back in that building. Very scary indeed. And it is often said that one of the rooms upstairs on the second floor is also very haunted. On a number of occasions people stay in this haunted room. I think the room is called 106, but I'm not certain on that number. But on a few occasions people stayed in this room and the door opens by itself. In fact, in many years ago, probably in the 80s and the 90s, a businessman came to Derby and stayed in that very room, not knowing that that room was haunted. And so he got to the hotel and he checked himself in, and he went upstairs and he put all of his clothes from his suitcase in a wardrobe, and he went out for some food in the afternoon. But when he came back, all of his clothes were all folded on the bed. He was annoyed by this. I think you would be as well if you'd have stayed in a hotel and you'd packed all your clothes away neatly into a cupboard, into a wardrobe. So he went downstairs and banged on reception. So, who's been in my room and taken all my clothes out of the cupboard, out of the wardrobe? And the staff all looked at each other and said, "None of us have done it, sir." Because they knew that this businessman was staying in the old haunted room. Not nice. And again, he went out and he came back later on that evening. He probably had a few beers, to be fair. But he came back and he went to bed. In the middle of the night, he said about 3 in the morning, the wardrobe opened up all of a sudden, and all of his clothes, which he put back carefully, all flew out across the room. He quickly packed his bags and he left the hotel at 3 in the morning and never returned. Again, that's a true story And I'm sure you agree, if you're staying in a hotel and suddenly all your clothes flew out of the cupboard, I think you would leave too. Now in Derby there's also another ghost at a pub called the Dolphin. And this is a ghost of an old woman. I think it's an old woman. Or it could be a child. No, it's a child ghost, this one. Upstairs in this pub at the Dolphin there's an old room. And back in the old days, the landlady and landlord used to sleep upstairs in this old room. This old room used to be their nursery, and they slept in another room, thinking about the tale as I tell it. And so, one day, she was going into the room, and sat by the window was a young girl, 5 or 6 years old. The woman went white with terror, for it was not her child, it was a ghost child. They soon packed their bags and left as well. So as you can see, those are a few of the stories of the hauntings of Derby. And there are many, many more stories like that from Derby. In fact, I've been going around recently with my camera, this one I'm using right now, and I filmed a few location videos. There's another story of an old medieval house in Derby. This medieval house used to be on the marketplace, but when they knocked it down in the 1960s, they kept the timbers and they kept the stairs. And in Derby we have a place called Saddlergate, or again, gate is the Viking word for street, so Saddlergata. You can probably guess what they did down there in the medieval times. They made saddles and leatherwork. It was famous for it. And in this place, Saddlergate, and again I recently filmed this place, there's a little courtyard called the Blacksmith courtyard. And as you go in, on the left hand side, the remains of this medieval house have been put up. Most of the building is modern, but the front and the stairs, the beams of the building are the original beams from this old house from the square. And many people have worked there over the time in various businesses. And it is said that the stairs are very, very haunted, for many people have been pushed down these stairs and get a very strange and welcome feeling when they walk up it. So again, it makes you think, do ghosts travel with the building itself if the building is knocked down and re-put up somewhere else? I think it's true, but it's certainly true about this building. And today it is a record shop selling LPs, and I'd like to go inside and film the stairs, but certainly back in the day when it was an agency for workers, a lot of the ladies that worked there used to go up the stairs to the office, and they will get a very unwelcome feeling at the top of the stairs, and some of them were pushed down the stairs. In fact, it got so bad that they had to put a banister rail all the way up the stairs so that when people walk up it, they don't fall over. And of course, Derby's also very famous for having one of the last hangings in Derby back in the 1860s. I can't remember the name of the man that was hung, but he was a murderer. And so there's lots of tales about that as well. And we have Derby Jail. And at some point when I remember, I will try to find the documentary me and Eggle were in about corporate punishment back in the day, and I'll upload it to the channel. But those are a few of the stories about Derby, and I will be recording some more in the shorts format because I think they're fascinating. So I hope you found that little segment there interesting. And you can't beat a good ghost story. As Jester Spade says, I shall listen to this as I fall asleep. Oh yes. And soon I'll be going to sleep, but not quite yet. I'll get some dinner after this because I'm getting hungry in my belly for food. And I'll probably have another cup of tea. you've got any questions. I mean, are ghosts real? That's what I like to know. I think they are, though I've never seen one. Certainly in England and Scotland as well, and Wales and Ireland, we have a lot of ghost stories and a lot of ghost sightings. Back in the day when I lived in Mickleover, Mickle is the Saxon word for big, and over is the Saxon word for hill, so Big Hill, as I often called it to my friends. There used to be a story about a lane called Radbourne Lane, and many a people have travelled down this road and have seen a headless horseman. The headless horseman is said to be from the English Civil War, a roundhead that got decapitated, and ever since that has been looking for his head. In fact, down at Radbourne Lane there is a small village called Radbourne Village, but it's not there anymore because it got taken away back in the 16th or 17th century, and all you can see are the remains of the houses. But Radbourne Church is still there, a Saxon church, and that is said to be haunted by this headless ghostman, and people have walked down this lane and driven down it and have seen a horse with a rider with no head. Of course, it's a very common theme to have a headless person, or indeed having a person carrying its head. I think in Scotland there's a famous churchyard where a ghost is seen at night of a cavalier or a roundhead from that period of history, of a very famous man. I forget his name, but he is often seen walking around with no head, or sometimes his head is under his arm. But it does make you think if ghosts are real. We'll have a look at your comments. And Chunky Monkey says, rent a ghost. Well, if you could rent a ghost, I don't think you would want to rent one for your house. And my house is haunted. Oh yes, some days when I go downstairs where I am now, I go in the hallway. On the odd occasion it goes very, very cold. And you get a very strange feeling of not being welcome in your house. But when I walk up the stairs, that feeling goes away. And opposite this room where I am now is the old haunted room. Now back in the day it used to be a dining room, but when my father Magdor took ill with Alzheimer's, I converted it into a bedroom for him, and we had some very spooky goings on. Now in this room there is like an offset shelving unit of glass shelves, and one night I came down and one of these glass shelves was about 3 foot away, and it was on the top of my sewing machine box. And to this day I cannot explain how a glass shelf can travel that far and land the way it did. And when I was converting that room into a bedroom, I left a standing lamp in the corner of the room, and the next day I came down in the morning and that lamp had travelled about 6 foot from one place to another, and I fell over and shattered. Again, I could not explain how the lamp base could travel 6 foot and fall over and be in the place it could. Now, if the lamp was fallen over, fair enough, but it didn't. It moved a good distance. So again, it makes you think. And strangely enough, some time ago I made some dividing rods, and through that very room is a ley line. And it makes you think what connection do ley lines have with ghosts. For that room is definitely haunted, and there's definitely a ley line travelling at an angle through the room. It does make you think, because this house is old. In 2 years' time this house will be 100 years old, I'm living in. So it makes you think how many people have died and passed away in this house over those years. There's a lot in the old days. In the old days, people died in their own bed, in their own house, because we didn't have hospitals like we do today. So it does make you think. And of course, people die and people kill themselves, and then some days they become ghosts because they are tormented. So we got spooks and ghouls, freaks and fools that do Winterghost, because Winterghost was a Charles TV show back in the 1980s, I think, wasn't it? In the UK, used to love that. And there's a pub in Derby I sometimes go in, and I've heard a few ghost stories about this place too. The place used to be a bank. It was made in the late 19th century, in about 1886. It became this grand building. But this building has a cellar, and there's a long corridor on the left hand side of the cellar where the people and the bar staff do not like to go. For on a few occasions the people have seen ghostly figures down there. And upstairs there are some offices, and again quite a few people do not like these offices, these spaces where the management work out, and they have the staff changing rooms. On a number of occasions the staff has seen a ghostly figure up there too. So again, what is the origin of that ghost? I don't know, but it makes you think, because people don't make tales about these sort of places without there being some element of truth to them. So yeah, reconnecting back. I'm live again. Hey, lost signal then. Was that the ghost making us lose signal? I do not know. But we all know that ghosts can affect signal. I mean, one of the most famous ghost hunters comes from Derby. His name is Richard Felix. He was on a TV show called Most Haunted. In fact, I met Richard on a few occasions. He's got a great lot of knowledge, and he was talking about this place, his old haunted great manor house. And this was back in the 90s when he was working for Radio Derby, and they was going to do a broadcast from this place. It's just up the M1. I can't remember the name of the place. And so they got there, and they had one of those old radio cars so they can get a signal. And just as they're about to go live, they lost the signal, and none of the equipment would work. And so they drove round to the front of the house to try to get a signal, and again they could not get a signal. And this place is very well known for, you know, having a ghost. So it doesn't make you think whether ghosts can affect electrical equipment, because I think they can. So Chunky Monkey says, that's right, be right back. My dog wants outside. So you go and sort your dog out. And Chunky Monkey says, you can YouTube Rent a Ghost, nostalgic entertainment for maybe 20 minutes. It used to be a good show, and we got a good thumbs up from Upper 10. So, oh yes, and you can't beat a good ghost story. And like I said, I am planning to record quite a few videos about the ghost of Derby, but I'll probably also look to do other ghost stories as well from other places, because there's many I can tell. And once you told a few stories and you got the ability to tell a story, I don't think one of the most important parts about telling a story is description and building up the atmosphere. Then I think that'll be quite a fun thing to do. Oh yes. As I'm going to grab a bit more of my drink. And this is not a spirit in here. I like the spirits out there, so watch out. There could be a ghost behind you right now. if you're going to turn around slowly. Because in World War II they would use ghost stories to stop people talking about secret operations. That was a very common practice. And it makes you think about UFOs and are some of the UFO stories and myth covering up secret projects and secret aircraft projects. I think that is a thing for sure. Oh yes, definitely. So Offer 10 says, have some places that are haunted here too. The Sami people claim to be able to cast magic in specific places, such as a town or a village. Well, in shamanic terms, there are places where they have areas of power, where you'd have a spot where you could sit and do your magic, and that place would be far more magical than other areas. So that's kind of true, I would say. Certainly, probably where ley lines cross of powerful areas. And I can remember going to a lecture about a guy who used to go and look for crop circles, and there was this famous crop circle from Wiltshire he used to go to every year. But one year, the crop circle had always appeared in the same shape and style. But one year it was different. It kind of like splintered off at the end into two. And so you was walking along the crop circle, and some people can't walk into crop circles. They get a very strange feeling, and it's said that they can't get near them. And then some people can only walk around clockwise and not anti-clockwise. Well, that's true, I do not know. But he went to this crop circle this one year when it kind of deformed and it split into two. And he got to the point where it split and he found a large rock of crystal. And it makes you think whether the crop circle got channeled through this rock, and therefore why it ended up being different and being a misshaped crop circle. But it makes you think, whether they're man-made or made by ETs. Certainly some of them are probably man-made, but when you see some of these complex designs of crop circles, you think, well, how in the 9 worlds is somebody able to fake one of them at night? So complex and such wonderful structures. And some of them really are quite wonderful and spectacular when it comes to design. So I think there's more to crop circles than meets the eye. And it does make you think whether, during these times of the Saxons and the Vikings when they grew crops, whether the crop circles were around them. I can certainly recall some woodcuts talking about or showing you crop circles, so I think possibly yes. I think they've been around a long time. And whether it's like extraterrestrials trying to communicate with us, I don't know. But that is a question for another day. I've had a shower earlier, so my hair needs combing. I might dye it blonde again. My girlfriend dyed it black, if you recall, a few months back. And I don't know. I might let her re-dye it and do what she wants with it. But I've not combed it since I've had a shower. And when this is the first Viking hat I bought back in 1999. It's not a bad hat. It's got a bit of tablet weave. The wool's getting a bit bare in places, I must say. But then again, if you've got a good hat and you like it, why not keep using it? Very, very common and basic design. As you could see, you could probably draw that from me showing you. And it's just finished off with a little bit of tablet weave, and the tablet weave is hanging at the back. Then what form a little bit of a tail. Now I suppose you could wear this like this, but I think that looks a bit silly. And I suppose you could wear it on the side again. But again, that makes you think, that's a bit daft. So I've always worn this hat with that bit of the hat at the back. And I'll turn it inside out for you. Because you probably don't often see what the inside of a Viking hat looks like. But that's what the inside looks like. And of course, hats are wonderful things. And of course here I got Anglo-Saxon's hat I made for him, and this is the Burka style, which is different to this. It's just a peak of material, two halves sewn together, and just finished off at the bottom. And you could either finish it off with it being on the inside, this bit here, or you could do it on the outside like I've done with this one. But I do love a good hat. In fact, this one's a bit warmer than this hat because this wall's a bit bare. And this is 24 years old, and this one's probably about 3 or 4 years old. So, and a nice deep madder red. And of course, that's shown you both as a Viking because you can afford red dye and red material, whereas this is more probably everyday common folk peasant type of a hat. I just like it, and I thought I'll wear it today on camera. I don't wear it inside out, I just realised. So there we go. And I got something in here. I've got my old songbook from the Civil War. So as I was talking about Civil War earlier, when I used to go in the Confederate camp, I would take this songbook out, and perhaps in a video, perhaps I'll sing you a few songs, not today, but on another live stream. If you'd like me to do that, then leave me a yes in the comments, and then I will I'll sing you a few songs in a live stream. It's a modern book, but I just put some leather on the outside so that I could tie it up. And then this used to go and camp with me, and like I said, I'll get invited over to the Confederate camp, and they'll say, "Come on, Bragi, sing us a load of songs," and I would have a few pints of beer, and then people would give me beer because I'm a good singer, and they'd have a right good time. But we're getting to the point of the live stream where I'm going to go soon because I've got to get to bed, and I've got to do a bit of relaxing and do some tidying up before I go. But I'll just have a look at your comments. There's one comment here I've not read, and Offerton says there was a demonstration against wind turbines where the Sami cast magic on the energy minister. He became incredibly nervous, and we haven't seen him for a few weeks. Laughs out loud. Well, I think that's a spectacular way of protesting having that built on your land. Yeah. And of course the Sami culture is a fascinating culture in itself. And certainly the Sami people haven't been treated fundamentally right throughout modern history. But again, that's another story for another day. And before I go, do you have any more questions or anything you want me to talk about before I do leave this live stream? I try not to telegraph the end, but of course, problem with when you telegraph the end, everybody disappears and think, "Oh, you're going now, Bragi, I'm going to go to bed." But I've got to get to bed myself at some point, and I don't want to be doing this all night. I've got things to do, and I've got to get to sleep in the next hour because I'm tired, and I've not had a lot of sleep in the last couple of days. It's always lovely when I get joined on a live stream. So we'll just check your comments again. Check my fire. My fire's okay. I can go and get a cup of tea in a minute. I can get something to eat and then go to sleep. And check my email in case my girlfriend's emailed me. Which would be very nice if she has. I expect she has, but we'll see. And until the next time we meet again, I'll probably try to do a live stream on Wednesday, maybe at the weekend, possibly Friday. I've got a load of videos I need to edit. And don't forget, tomorrow is Anglo-Saxon Day, so. Yeah, I'm about to go in a minute, Sam, but no, I'll hang about now for a few minutes to see how you are. So, got a comment here saying from Sam Stapleton, "I made it!" Big smiley face. How are you, Sam? I've been telling a few ghost stories and talking about the ghost of Derby. So, this is well worth catching up on later on when it goes public. I've got to go on my phone and make sure it's monitorised, of course. Because I don't know why you do a live stream, they're never monitorised. So Sam Stapleton says, I get all the notifications besides the live stream. Well, that's cool. I'm glad you're getting those notifications. At the moment, YouTube are sharing the videos out, so we're getting some good views on the videos. We're just gone through a bit of a slump. You know, we've been through the trough of the, and now we're going up to another peak, and we're peaking again. So that's great, and I don't want to be knocking out too much content because I could really knock out 10 to 20 videos a day, but that'll probably be too many for you because they'll be in the short format because they're much easier to you know, to make on long format. And he says, we'll definitely check the whole thing. Oh yes, please do. And it's definitely well worth checking out. And of course today I'm filming in my lounge, and I am as a blacksmith holding my Viking hammer because, you know, let's face it, if I don't attack them with that, I'm going to attack them with that if any Normans come in, or any Saxons, or even Angles, or anybody, or robbers, or thieves. You know, you have a bit of this. I don't pretend that as a Viking. I don't recommend if you get burgled, you go around hammering people, you get arrested. You know, you use a household object to defend yourself. You can do a lot of damage with a lampshade. And Milkman says, take care, wonderful talk, get those singing voice warmed up. And then Sam Stapleton says, I hate to miss the live stream. Well, you turned up in the end. This is the most important thing, and I hope you keep in roll and you keep producing content. I've seen a few of your links you sent to some videos. I've just not really had a chance to go on my computer and watch those videos, but you know, when I watch them I'll leave you a comment. And I've got a few things planned. Oh yeah, let's talk about Saturday. Whilst we've still got some people here, I am planning a short live stream on Saturday where I'll be testing a Dane axe against a watermelon and possibly a pumpkin. I mean, I've got to film a pumpkin video for next. I've not been brilliant when it comes to planning my pumpkin video because my girlfriend gave me a load of videos I've got to do. 10 generic ones on the Vikings, which I got to film, but she wanted me to film 4 specific videos, and one of them's about cooking a chicken, so I've got to do that. But she said, get a watermelon and do a live stream. I didn't want to do it in the week because I don't think I'll get the audience, so I'm going to probably start advertising that probably tomorrow to build up a bit of audience. So if it's not raining on Saturday, and I'm going to be testing a watermelon against a Dane axe live on camera. So whilst I think about it, watch out for that. And like I said, I'll advertise it beforehand through the community post, and I'll probably film it on my other camera as well, as I recently, last couple of days, bought an SD card reader so I can start using my SLR cameras again rather than relying on using this mobile, because I need to upgrade, but I can't really afford to upgrade to a decent phone. I quite fancy going for the Google 8 Pixel Pro because that seems to be quite good, and it makes sense if you're using and making content for Google or fundamentally YouTube, then you should probably upgrade and get the Google phone. But you know, $50 a month for a phone upgrade is way too expensive in my mind. So I'll wait for the hype to calm down. And maybe in 6 months' time or a year, yeah, and then yeah, and if I go to my workshop, I'm gonna try to bring back. I got an old printer, and I've always wanted to do Dane axe versus printer, basically because I don't like printers because they never work when you want a printer to work. You got to print out some customs form or some important bit of paperwork you need, and you can guarantee you got no ink, or your black and white ink's gone, but you still got colour, but you can't print because you don't have any black and white ink. And ink is so expensive because it's a rip-off, and you get halfway through your little cartridge and it runs out, even though you shake it and you think, oh, there's fucking loads of ink in there, but you're being ripped off again. So if I remember to get out of my workshop, because I've got to bring some tools back for another project, and I'm going to attempt at doing I'm making a wood carving video of carving a kind of a head of Odin, I think. Not that I've done any wood carving in my past, so this is going to be something completely new. I may have to practice beforehand off camera, but if I bring my printer back, I'm going to do also the same live stream, beat up a printer with a Dane axe. It's going to cause a bit of a mess in the garden, but I don't care because I've got an old printer. It's knackered. I'm never going to use it. It will end up in the bin anyway. So I think recording a video of a Dane axe versus a printer would be quite cool, and I would live stream it at the same time as record it on one of my other cameras, and then make a video out of it, but also have it on a live stream. So I'll just look at your comments. And we've got a smiley face from Chunky Monkey, so he definitely likes that. And Sam Stapleton says, well, we need to see what kind of damage it can do. Oh yeah, definitely. And then I think at some point I'll buy some more watermelons, and I'll try to find my key to my Viking war chest, and I'll break out a sharp sword, and we'll do a sharp sword against a watermelon and see whether we can cut one in half. But at the moment I'm just planning to get two or three stumps and put the watermelon on the stump and just get a Dane axe and smash it in half. So it'll be quick. The watermelon will be gone in 30 seconds and be smashed up. But it's just for a laugh really. And we've never really done nothing like that on camera. And then Sam Stapleton says, thank you, and you got me some new subscribers as well, and you are allowed to use any of my videos. Yes, I will. I'm going to put like a video together at your videos. I'll do a commentary, and then I'll use that to send people in your direction to let all my subscribers know, because I think only at the moment 18% of people that watch my channel are subscribed to the channel, so there's like 82% of people aren't subscribed to the channel. So make sure you are subscribed if you're watching this later on, or right now and you're not subscribed to this channel. And also don't forget, there's a few ways you can help us on the channel. You can help by sending money to our PayPal account, and that money will be spent back on the channel, and you got your super chat, and also you got merchandise as well. But even just watching the videos and liking the videos and sharing the videos is probably more important than hoping in a financial way, because that all reaches a bigger audience, and then eventually YouTube will share videos out more, and I'll be able to put that money I make from YouTube ad revenue back into the channel and make even better content. And then Brad says, what about cutting a shoulder of lamb in half? Well, yeah, if I could buy a shoulder of lamb, I could try that somehow. I'd have to think about that. I like lamb, so I want to do it in a clean environment so I can eat it afterwards. I wouldn't want to waste it. It falls on the grass, I can bloody wash the damn thing. And then Chunky Monkey says, lamb's pretty expensive, it is in the UK. How about chicken instead? Well, yeah, you can get a chicken for £4 to £5. I could do one of them instead. Not do one, I could chop one off with an axe. Oh dear, that sounds bad, doesn't it? Or perhaps we could test this out on a chicken. Germanic sea axe versus chicken. Who would win? I think the chicken would have a horrible death. I mean, even more funny would be me trying to chase a live chicken around. I think the chicken would win. I think, I thought about, getting one of those kind of like a punch bag dummy we could beat up on camera. But again, that's all down to expense, and I don't have that money to spend on a dummy to beat up. But those are the sort of things we'll be doing in the future when the channel goes viral and they've got that ad revenue coming in, when I can say to myself, right, we've got enough money coming in, we can go and buy one of these punch bag dummies, and we can beat it up on camera, or go and buy a couple of cheap helmets and test some cheap helmets on camera and see whether we can pierce a helmet with one of these. I wouldn't want to do it with one of my current helmets because I don't really have any ones I want to beat up. apart from that really rubbish Sutton Hoo one. Well, I don't know. I like a Sutton Hoo helmet which is quite generic, and a part of me, thinks, oh, it's not brilliant, but then a part of me thinks it's not bad either. So I can't make my mind up about it, and perhaps I'll do a video explaining why. And Brad says those dummies are about 300 quid. Exactly. I mean that's 2 weeks' wages, and I just can't justify it at this stage of the channel. But when we get millions of views, every month, and YouTube are paying me loads of money in ad revenue, then we'll certainly put that money back into the channel. Unless I win the lottery. And we've got a comment here from Toy Boy. He says hi. So hello, Toy Boy. How are you today? I think you have been on a live stream, or recognise the name. And then Sam Stapleton says, make sure you eat some of the watermelon. I hate seeing all the videos where they just waste it. Well, yeah, if it gets chopped in half or quartered and I can wash it, I will try to eat some of it. I'll eat it afterwards like a savage. Or, or like not a savage, like a Viking, just munch it away, Yeah, I do agree with you. And you see these videos when they beat up a bit, a watermelon on camera and they just waste it on the floor. Even worse when they do it with like half a side of a pig and it just goes in the bin. I mean that's fairly clean. I could attack a pig, dead one, with that and still use the pork afterwards. You know what I mean? Maybe not a chicken, because I think that will probably pulverise a chicken to bits, and you may not want to eat a pulverised chicken. And I don't really like chicken, if I'm honest. Give me a nice bit of duck or goose any day. But yeah. And there's an always feel sorry for the little piggy. Well. I suppose I could end the video on the live stream on the tale of the 3 pigs, but tell it in a Viking sense, So it is a good story, the tale of the 3 pigs and the wolf. Would you like that as a story for me to tell? And then Offer 10 says, hey Toy Boy, and I've told that story before on the channel. I could tell it with swearing. It'll be the 3 effing pigs. I think I've done that already in a video. With one of those very rare stories I tell with swearing as a kind of a trial and a test run to see what actually a story, with swearing in would be like. But I think, I kind of not done too many of them because I could record quite a few of them. But I think I'll leave that for a 18+ Northworthy channel in the future. And then Chunky Monkey says, no joke about a farmer that was making love to his pigs. Oh yeah, I know a funny joke about, once upon a time there was an old farmer and his wife, and they were both lying in bed at night, and the farmer went over and grabbed his wife's breasts. He said, if we can get these old breasts working, we can get rid of that old guy. Squeezing his wife's breasts. And so she leant over and she grabbed his husband, the farmer's manhood, and said, if I can get this old thing working, we can get rid of your brother-in-law. So I'm trying to tell it, but without sounding too rude. And then Brad says, put your Viking uniform on and sneak into the neighbour's farm and nick a chicken. Film it. That'll get you some views. Yeah, it may also get me arrested as well. And then I'll have a mugshot of me in the police cell dressed as a Viking. Man, local Viking nut steals chicken from farmer. It'll be in the national newspaper. I mean, I suppose that's one way to get fame at last. I'm after fame, but you know what I mean. And Sam Stapleton says, find the maker and ask him if he would donate a helmet to the show durability of his work. Well, yeah, that's another good idea. I mean, I'm definitely up for traders and manufacturers to send me, 3 bits of kit, and I'll review it. And something like a helmet we could test on camera if it's not too nice. If it's a nice one, we won't damage it. But and they must have seconds where they make something and it's not quite right or it's wrong. So a lot of these traders must, especially the importing it, must have helmets which are wrong and not being made properly, because that must happen. And Chunky Monkey says, how about Bragi? You do some interviews with people that you take the Viking point of view on things. Well, yeah, that's another possibility in the future as well. I mean, I kind of did a few interviews with Eggle pretending to be famous people, but I didn't do too many of them. I wish I did more, really. I mean, that's one of your regrets in life, and it's I think if you got a good old friend, always hang about with them as much as possible, because you never know when they're going to pass away and you won't see them again, which is sad. But yeah, if you know any traders, or if any of you guys want to ask any traders to send stuff to Northworthy for a review, then I'm more than happy to review stuff. And if they've got some old helmet or a bit of chainmail they want to test on camera, then we could certainly do that as well. And then Chunky Monkey says, you would probably make a really good interview, actually. Well, I think I would, because I've got the gift of the gab, and I generally know how to get those questions across and be quite in depth. And the interviews I've done before with like TK and Eggle generally works well. And of course, as the channel grows, people want to do collab review, which I'm not really chasing in the past, but I'm kind of waiting for people to chase us. So Toy Boy says, what is your favourite weapon? Well, it's probably, I don't know, I like a good sea axe, but then again I also like a good Viking spear, although this is more of a javelin. So either of those two are great, and a more of an unusual weapon would be a hammer. But you don't often think about Vikings going around with hammers, even though the most famous Viking, Thor, had one called Mjolnir. But and that's one I made many years ago. That's been laser cut out on a laser machine, and it needs a bit of work actually and tidying up. And then that used to be an axe handle, which the axe didn't fit on no more, so I just converted it. But it's got a bit of I don't know if you'll see it, it's got a bit of a burning on it of a design, and on the back it's got a bit of runic script. Yeah. And I just converted it to fit this hammer. Although what I got to do, I think I'm going to melt some pewter and just pour it into this bit, because because it's been laser cut out, and because I've worked it on a forge, it's kind of tapered the hole out in both directions, so I've got a bit of a gap. So I'm just going to pour some hot pewter or some lead down into that little hole and stand the roll back so I don't get sprayed with it if it's a bit moist, which I don't think it is, and that will be on there forever then. It's a fascinating way to fasten a hammer onto a handle, but can be quite dangerous. And that's another sea axe, another favourite of mine. Because I like an axe and I like a good sword. I do have one sword with me I kind of forgotten about. This is one I bought for Eggle. This is the Armour Class by Armour Class. This is the short Viking sword. It's got a good balance to it. This is ideal for if you're new to the hobby and you want a sword which is not too heavy and quite light for those, so that's quite a good sword for that. And that's what the pommel looks like, and the crossguard of Crillium. And it's got a two nice bit of mountings and a leather handle on a wooden grip. So that's not a bad blade by Armour Class. That's the shortest blade they do. They do have a very nice Viking sword, which I won't mind buying at some point in the future. But when I got some spare cash, or I get some good revenue from YouTube, I will definitely go on the website and order one. And then a part of the 5,000 celebration is I will be unboxing something on camera in the next few days, which will be coming in the post, because they pretty much just paid for the import fees from Poland. and this would be the most, well, not the most expensive bit of kit I bought, but I spent about £500 on something a year ago, and I'm getting it this week. So at some point I will be doing a video, a long format video on that. And you know, and I'm not going to say too much about what it is. Some of you may know already, as I have talked about it on camera, but I'm going to save it for that video. And I'm going to take this bag off. I'll tell you what, I've got a heavy book in there. It's catching on my shoulder, because it does make you think about Viking kit when you're wearing a leather shoulder bag. And this is like a Frankish shoulder bag design. If anybody ever wants the dimension of this bag to make one, it's quite easy to make. Then let me know, because I can give you the dimensions. I made a few of them over the years. I used to sell them. I used to sell these on Etsy. There's a few around in the world which I've made. But you know, it takes quite a few hours to make it, and the money I was getting not really worth making them really. Just have a look at your comments. Hang on a minute. There we go. So Offer 10 says 12.76 and 9.32 times 62. Oh yeah, that's ammo rounds, I assume. I can't think of what's that. I still find it quite amazing that, you know, the Germans, you know, in World War II invented the 7.62mm, and it's still used today by NATO. And that's, you know, the you know what, the MG42, which is a splendid machine gun, which I've been quite lucky to fire as a World War II reenactor. Although only I was playing English and American, I never played German. The German reenactors let me have a go one afternoon, and I still find it quite amazing that that machine gun model is still made today for NATO. And so you'll go to some NATO countries and you'll find that the MG42 modern variant is still made. And I find that to be fascinating, because it is a splendid gun. You know, much better than the MG38, if I'm correct. But I often forget, because I've learnt too much about history, and you can only store so much in your brain. So any more comments? Any more questions? And have you got any thoughts about what you'd like me to do in a live stream next? Yeah, we use the MG3, which is a successor of the MG42. Well, yeah, exactly, yeah. It's just that they don't call it the MG42, it's got a more modern name, but it's still fundamentally the same gun, as I scratch my head. That's the thing about wearing a woolly hat, it does make your head a bit itchy at times. So there's nothing better after you've been wearing your Viking hat all day and you think, oh, I have a good scratch on your forehead. Oh, great. Oh, it feels wonderful. It makes you think how long Vikings have been doing that. You know, oh, Eric, come on, I've got an itchy head today, so I'm going to scratch it. Oh, lovely. And you sit around the fireside drinking mead and scratching your head. You know, I think it's a very old tradition and a very old thing indeed. And Toy Boy, what is your favourite type of armour? Well, probably mail. I like mail, but I like to wear it on top of a leather jerkin rather than a gambeson. The gambesons are a little bit cumbersome, and you get a little bit hot in a gambeson, whereas I find a leather jerkin a little bit better underneath mail. And the reason why you got to have something underneath your mail is because if I got this on and I'm wearing my mail suit, then all the oil from the mail is going to make my nice, you know, tunic or coat very oily and greasy, and I don't want that. I want it on my leather jerkins. I don't mind that getting greasy and oily, and especially with some suits of mail can be very, very oily. And so what will happen, your leather jerkin will end up basically being black because of the oil. Which is why I prefer a plated mail suit rather than just a pure iron one, because a pure iron suit of mail will go rusty if you don't take care of it, and it's a massive problem to deal with if you're trying to you know, de-rust the mail suit. Oh yeah, you can put it in a vat of white vinegar and that'll get rid of the rust, but you still got to deal with it after that, so you still got to oil it back up. So perhaps that's something we could talk about. But I do have a rusty suit of mail. It's a seat in that other room I got to deal with. It's very, very mucky, and you'll end up with brown, rusty hands just handling it. It's only a split link mail suit rather than you know, a decent suit like the other one is, my plated one. That's because it's made out of split washers and not out of just pure iron links. And Chunky Monkey says, Bragi, do you think maybe leather armour was popular? Well, yes, but not like you see in Hollywood films, because that's too tall. It would have been just simpler and much plainer. Maybe you may have, you know, rectangular segments over your leather jerkin to add it a bit more force, but at the end of the day, you know, a sea axe or a sword is going to just cut through that leather, because it's only just skin, really. And you don't want, you know, you can't be wearing a really thick leather hide on top of you because it's going to restrict your movement. So, you know, yeah. And then Stan Stapleton says, you won't believe how strong it is after bowling it lithu. Oh, yeah. And then Sam Stapleton says, I wish I had friends that would give me a sword. Well, you can never own enough swords, really. But it'd be nice to get given one, wouldn't it? I mean, imagine when we go viral and we're really big and we've got like hundreds of thousands of subscribers, we're going to be sent so much stuff from traders saying, oh, you know, can we send you this if you do a video? Oh, yeah. And then I'm going to have so much stuff in the house and Viking kit, and I'm just going to be giving it away to you guys in competitions. That's what I hope, anyway. Well, no, Chunky Monkey says, so leather would be kind of pointless. No, it just gives you some protection. It keeps you warm as well, so it's not pointless. It's that, you know, it's wearing a leather jerkin is better than wearing a wool tunic. So you want the combination of both. So it's also about warmth, it's also about durability as well. But, you know, at the end of the day, if you're fighting and you're fighting against somebody with a very sharp sword and he gets you on the chest, then, you know, most probably it's going to cut your leather jerkin and cut your suit and cut you. That's fundamentally why they, you know, the better armoured class Vikings and higher ranks had mail. Because they could afford, they could afford the mail, and mail gives you way more protection. But it's also down to the skill of the individual. And Chunky Monkey said, I've been meaning to get a Saxon shield for home defence. I would use a wooden club short. Oh yeah, both were very effective. And then Sam Stapleton said, you should look into the medieval shield with the point at the end. Very dangerous. Well, yeah, definitely. If you're talking about the point on the shield boss, that's quite dangerous. But in modern reenactments, not practical because it's dangerous. You know, and people have been killed in Viking reenactment with a shield, either being hit by the boss or the shield itself. I think there's at least 2 or 3 cases of that, from what I understand. Certainly one from a few years back where somebody got hit by a shield boss on the head, and it basically killed them. So you've got to be so careful. But yeah, the idea of having your shield, of course, you can also go into weapon with something like this. You know, let's face it, if you're a peasant and you can't afford a good knife, then you're going to battle with a good wooden club. But again, not the most practical thing. It's a bit big to wear, you know, to yield about the battlefield. But I imagine, you know, knocking against your shield up would be quite effective. But then some guy with an axe could probably chop that in half in a few blows, and then you end up with no weapon. So, you know, and then having a point on the end of your shield or spike is very effective, but in modern reenactment terms, you can't have one of them because you're going to hurt somebody. And the idea about a Viking, you know, reenactment battle is that you don't hurt people. You know, you're pretending and you're putting on a show. look, these are all the things we could talk about in the future. And if you fancy leaving a long, detailed comment on the live stream after it goes public when I finish it soon, then please do so. And if it's a good, long, decent comment I can read out on camera and make a 2 or 3 minute video, then I will do so. And then you'll get your... It's also another way I can share your channel. If you've got a channel on YouTube and you want to shout out, so there's another way for me to give you a shout out as well. Yeah, so Troy Boy says, what is your favourite Greek mythology story? Well, probably one about Icarus, isn't it? And flying up to heaven. It's one of my favourite ones. But I really need to read up on my Greek myths, because it's been many years since I've read any Greek myths. And the same with Roman myths. And Offerten says, Roman gladiators can be good in close combat defence. Well, yes, fundamentally so. But then the Romans had a different way of fighting compared to what we had, and a different shield technique. I mean, I do have a Roman shield, but it's just massively oversized. It was made that way on purpose, because it's too unpractical to use in camera. I do have a video to review of 2 gladiators fighting at some point. I've got to do some audio for that, so that'll be coming out in the future. And if you're watching YouTube and you see a shorts video and you say, well, that's a really good video that Bragi could do a commentary to, then please leave it in the description, and at some point I will click on it and go back and remember and make a video about, a commentary about that video you liked. Because I do search, I go on my phone and I'll search the shorts format for videos I can review, and then I'll download those videos using a YouTube downloader, and then I'll put it into my hard drive. I've got quite a lot of videos like that in hand, ready to go. I'm just trying to sort out my hard drive so it's a bit more better organised than what it has been, because literally I looked on the other day, I had like just on one folder I had like 1,200 videos to go through. So, but it all helps. Any more comments? I'm going to go in a minute. My voice is going. Sam Stapleton says that. Have you had any of your treadmill get so rusty you can't use it? Well, I don't have a treadmill. But yeah, if you're using it outside, I've got a multi-gym. But that's not a treadmill though, is it? Yeah. And don't forget, like the video, whoever likes the video next is going to be number 9. And number 9, and the figure 9 is very magical to the Norse, so they'll have a lot of good luck. Oh yes, to be the 9th liker of this live stream. And of course the next one will be hopefully in the next few days. I'm trying to do, oh, we've got the 9th like, so there you go, somebody's been very lucky and got the 9th like to this video. And I will try to do another live stream in the next few days. I'm trying to do, thank you very much, Aaron Kelly, for doing the 9th like on this. And I will try to do another live stream in the next few days and do them every week from now on, and try to get some routine to the live streams. I do like the idea of doing a live stream every Wednesday because it's Odin's Day, and being a Viking channel, I can't think of a better way to honour the gods than appearing live on camera. Plus, I can also in the future make a lot of short videos from these live streams as well, which is one of the reasons why live streaming is also a good source for short format videos. And then Toy Boy says, what is your worst injury you had done? Well, probably when I was doing Viking re-enactment, I was in charge of quite a few guys. I was a training officer, so I was responsible for training, my Viking group. This wasn't a battle-related injury, so we've been battling all day, and we're gone away to a training weekend in Shrewsbury, which is to the west of where I am, in well, it's kind of Staffordshire way. So, as always with Viking reenactment or any reenactment, you always end up down the pub, down the inn. So we've been for a few jars of beers, a few pints, and we had to walk back down this old country road. So I said, right, I'm going to lead, lads, but I don't want none of you guys to fall over and hurt yourself. And so I was walking back, and I twisted and tore my tendons in this foot here, and my whole foot the next day was completely black. And I did manage to do the battle practice. I kind of hobbled in, and you know, but I didn't last very long in the battle because I had torn tendons in my foot. And I remember that weekend I drank a lot of beer to numb the pain. But that's probably one of my worst injuries I've had. And then I was doing an American Civil War event, one of my last injuries I had, and we don't often do hand-to-hand combat in that period of history because we're using muskets and guns, and they can be quite dangerous, so it has to be planned. And so we was at a place called Tatton Park, and we was at the old Tatton Hall, which is one of the most haunted halls in England. And the Confederates were defending a hill, and we was down in the valley, the Union guys, and we kind of agreed to charge the defence lines of the Confederacy and get into hand-to-hand combat, which is right next to the public. So there I am, I'm fighting this big chap with my musket, you know, trying to give it some, and I got my hand impaled on the back of his equipment. He had a bolt, and it had a hook, which kind of hooked up on a spike. And so as I was fighting him, my hand got impaled, and I couldn't separate my hand from his kit. And I said, my hand's caught on your back. So one of the other guys saw what was happening and pulled my hand off. So he realised I got caught on my hand. I got a bit of a scar, but you can't really see it. But basically I had this metal brass spike of about an inch going into my hand. And my hand was impaled. I was still fighting the guy at the time, even though I couldn't move this hand. It was fastened to the back of his leather bolt system. So you imagine he had a leather bolt like this, although it was a Confederate bolt, and a brass hook, a mounting hook for a bit of equipment or something. And so it was impaled. And then I had a little round scar. It kind of just bled for a bit, and then that was that. So that's probably my last injury I had. And of course, I had this tooth knocked out in Viking battle, but I can't remember if it was an axe or sword. I just ended up going to the battlefield and half my tooth was gone. So, and then I remember another time when I was fighting at the Robin Hood Festival in Nottingham, and this will be in the late 90s, I think. And I was playing, what part? I was playing the guy that sings. I think who's the guy from Robin Hood who sings songs? Was it the Miller? No, I was playing Wolf Scarlet. That was what I was playing. And so I had to go and fight this guy called Whiff, and he was playing a Anglo-Norman. And so we were doing a sword fight, and my sword kind of bounced off the top of his shield, and it caught his face, and it cut him all the way along here like that, with a little cut. And he was bleeding everywhere, all his blood coming down out his face. And I say, you alright, Whiff? You alright? He says, it's everything great. He says, best fight I've had in ages. He says, carry on. So we carried on with all his blood spurting out his face, pouring everywhere. And I think I killed him in the end because being Will Scarlet, I got to live on for the next battle. So I remember that as well as one of those memories of my reenactment. And it was like overexcited he was about the great fight, and it just had a couple of stitches. And you know, these things happen unfortunately in reenactment. You know, your sword bounces off and you catch somebody, you know, you're not careful, it does happen. So yeah. And then another occasion I was doing a battle practice with the Derby group, and we was in a wood, and we made a wooden barrier of all these branches. And this was one of the very few occasions that we gave Tirkir from the channel a spear, because most of the time he would use a sword and a shield. You know, probably the last occasion I gave him a spear, to be honest, because he was basically attacking us, and we was behind this a lot of wood, you know, all these branches, like a defence area, and so they had to try to break through the branches, and he kind of got this branch in with his spear and caught it and flicked it back, but then it got flicked forward, and this big branch went straight on my head, right here, and I was wearing a helmet at the time, so it made a massive dent in my helmet. And I kind of felt a bit like, you know, lightheaded for a few minutes, thinking, "Oh, what's happened there?" And no doubt in the past I've shown this helmet on camera, and it's one I used to wear a lot, and you can see the dent, and you know, so that's another lucky injury. If I wasn't wearing that helmet, I might have been badly hurt. So he kind of, what happened, because he was trying to clear the branches with the spear. So what he was doing, he was coming down, and he was trying to flick the branches away. So he caught the branch, and instead of it flying off, it still hung onto the spear. I think it must have been a wing spear. And so he flicked it back again, and then the branch just flew off at very high speed towards my head. So I remember that one as well. Yeah. I remember another time I was doing American Civil War reenactments at the American Museum in Bath. And that's like down Somerset Way near Devon, and the battlefield is basically a slope like this. You know, it really is. It's a slope. You've got this big castle on the top, and a slope of, like, you know, a really mad angle. And so at the time I was playing an officer, so I had a sword, an officer's sword at my belt, and so I think we was charging up the hill. And the Confederates were at the top, and as I was coming up the hill, I kind of tripped over my sword and I fell over, and I started to roll down the hill, and you know, I was rolling down the hill, and I thought, oh, there was a line of Union infantry, and instead of stopping me, they just jumped over me and let me carry on rolling, and it's a massive hill, so I ended up at the bottom of the hill again. And then, of course, my men got slaughtered at that point because they was all dead. And then I had to make my way back up the hill again and then rejoin another regiment. But I remember that one quite clearly as well. So there's a few funny historical reenactment stories. And I probably got more, but I just got to remember them. So I'll check that video out later on. So, but you do have if you do see any shorts videos you think I could do a review of, or do a commentary to, then please do share them in the comments of our videos, and then I'll click in it and then download the video and put it onto my hard drive, and at some point I will do a commentary to that video, because that's also another way you can help the channel, by finding me videos to use, because you can do that with the shorts program. If you did it fundamentally and downloaded videos with a long format, you may have a bit of a copyright issue. Not that it's going to cause much of an issue, because you don't really get copyright strikes like the old days, but with the shorts format you can reuse other people's content. And certainly, you know, it's one of the ways you could get a successful channel. Let's say you started a Family Guy channel and you started downloading Family Guy videos, and you made a load of shorts videos. Within a few months you probably have more subscribers than what I have, because that's a popular subject. I mean, I thought about doing that myself, but so I am working on a few other channels, and one of them is going to be a ghost related channel I'm working on behind the scenes, because it's quite easy for me to download a video and very quickly make some you know, some shorts videos from a long format video, because that's just quite easily for me to do. Because let's face it, I think we just published yesterday or the day before our 1900th video on the channel, and so probably within 2-3 weeks we'll have our 2000th video on the channel, and perhaps we should do something to you know, to celebrate that. So Toy Boy says, do you watch any YouTube channels? Yeah, I watch one called IKS Exploration. I find that a very good channel. You know, they're urban explorers, and I watch a few channels that go around old derelict mines. Like there's one called Mines UK, I think. I watch World War II History Hunter. I watch a few of his videos now and again when they pop up. I used to watch quite a few of the Deep Digger Dan videos, but he doesn't really do much content anymore on that channel, and he's now called Travel Troll TV. But I stopped really watching him. But you get out of a habit of watching channels. There's a guy in America who goes around metal detecting. What's his name? I'm not watching for a while, but I'll keep meaning to go back. So there's a few channels I do watch, but because you make content, you don't always want to be watching content. And of course, if you've got any channel recommendations I should be watching, then let me know. I sometimes watch a bit of Modern History TV, which is a guy who does later medieval reenacting. He's quite good. I quite enjoy his videos. Very well made. He's got a lot of production behind him. I'm doing everything myself. I'm wearing many hats, from the host to the director to the producer. And we're hoping that me and my girlfriend are going to start filming content together at some point in the future and doing different things on the channel as well, and adding another kind of in-depth subjects to the channel on travelling experience on our travels and what we're going to do together. So that's something I'm hoping to do in the future, but as always, everything takes time. I'm just trying to think of that other channel that does metal detecting. I like a few metal detecting channels. There's a few good ghost channels. Yeah, so I've got to look at that video. So at Sam Stapleton, OMG, that sword is big. That chair didn't stand a chance. Oh yes, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Perhaps I'll download it and do a commentary on it for you. But yeah, I will get some of your videos. I'm going to do like a video recommending you as a channel, and then I'll put that on the channel and then advertise your channel through that. So I think that'll be a good way of doing that as well. So anyway, I think I'm getting to the point where I'm going to have to go because I've got to get to bed, and I carried on a bit longer than what I planned. So if you've got any more questions before I go, then please let me know. If not, I will be going shortly. Again, telegraphing the end of the video is never a good thing. And thank you to all the people that watched, and all the likes, and all the comments, because you truly make the channel with all your comments and the interaction. And if you've got any ideas for future live streams, then let me know. That'd be wonderful. And don't forget, the best way you can help the channel is by sharing the videos and making sure that you'd like as many videos as you can. And then Toy Boy says, do you play video games or game? Yes, I do. I'd like Call of Duty. I've been in quite a few clans with them. I was back in the day when Call of Duty was really massive. I was in 2 clans. I was in the FUG, which stands for FU Germans. And then I was in the Dirty Tubing Bastards, the DTB. There's another clan I was in. Don't like swearing on camera, but I'm in clans that both involve swearing words. But those are 2 clans I was in, and I still know quite a few of those guys. And I played a lot of Minecraft, and I played a lot of Anarchy Minecraft, including the infamous world of 2B2T many years ago. And then I played games like Fallout. I played a lot of the Fallout games. Fallout 3, one of my first experience I had on the Xbox. And I remember it clearly to this day. Those first few days in the wastelands of the wilderness, trying to survive. I thought that was brilliant. And of course, I've been a gamer since really the 1980s, when I had a Spectrum, and then when I had my first girlfriend when I was about 17, we broke up, and you go through that stage of being all pitiful and sorrowful for yourself and feeling down. So I bought my neighbour's PC because he wanted to upgrade, and because he had Doom, the first Doom on there, so I played a lot of Doom games. And that's my first PC I ever had, was playing Doom, just to get me over that breakup really. So I killed a lot of the aliens on that game just to get me over that first relationship breakup when I was 17, back in about, in the early 90s, not giving my age away. So of course, like I said, I started off on the Spectrum in probably about 93, 94, no, 83, 84, maybe 85. I had the Spectrum, I had the ZX, and the one before that with the little rubber keyboards. So I played a lot of computer games over the years, like Age of Empire. I used to love those games. I think my all-time ultimate game was Transport Tycoon Deluxe. It was a brilliant game. I used to love that game as well. Yeah, so then like oh well, it's a game by Bethesda, but the one in fantasy I forget now. Wait a minute, it'll come back to me in a minute. My mind's going blank, being tired. You know, the one with the dragons and you go around like as a Viking. So you know, yeah, I played a lot of adventure games. I do have a lot of games, but I'm currently on the X. My gamer tag is Red LGD Devil 9, and I do have a gaming channel called Red LGD Devil Gaming 9, and I have another one which I'm starting called The Jesus of MC, because I do play a lot of Minecraft. I mean, to be fair, I've been quite hardcore on Minecraft, mainly hardcore survival. I just like the creativity of the game and the fact that, you know, I never really got bored of it. So, yeah. So I've had a lot of fun gaming, yeah. So, and Sam said he had a lot of fun. I assume that's the you breaking up a chair. And then Aaron Kelly says, "Thanks for the stream. Well, you're more than welcome, and thanks for being here and taking part." And Chunky Monkey says, "My dad brought my brother a Tandy 31K. Well, I remember my first PC. It had like 100 megabyte of memory, and I thought, wow, what a massive amount of size that is. And now you can get like, you know, 16 and 24, you know, terabyte of memory on a hard drive." And then Chunky Monkey says, "Program it in BBC Basic. It sucked." Well, yeah, I mean, amazing how gaming has developed over the years, really. You know, and where we're going to be in a few years' time. You know, the metaverse hasn't really kicked off yet, so that's not really coming yet. I mean, how much AI is going to affect gaming, I don't know. But I think when we get to the day when you play a game and it looks just like real life, is when we know we've got to the pinnacle of gaming. We're not quite got there yet, because a lot of the games you see the human interaction of the figures, and they still look computer generated. So when that day comes in, when proper graphics kicks in and it looks just like this live stream, that's when gaming is going to be amazing. You know, at that point, I'm going to say goodbye, because I'm going to be here forever, and I'm going to wind it up in the next 3 minutes and end on 3 hours, because that's a good amount of live streaming, and it doesn't half affect your voice after you've done a 3-hour live stream, or even a 5-hour live stream. You definitely are croaking the next day, and at some point I've got to get some filming in, and I don't want to be croaky on camera and have no voice. So I just want to say thank you very much, everybody that watched and joined in. Thank you for the likes, the comments, and like I said, you could share the videos for me, and if you could like the videos, you know, share them with your family and your friends. If you're on Twitter or you're on Reddit, then please share it on those two platforms, because they're some of the best platforms for sharing content. I'm not very good at sharing videos, to be fair. I put my hand up to that. I'm pretty rubbish at sharing content, and being a content creator, I should be quite good, but I'm just not brilliant at it. So if you could go on, if you're a Reddit user and you got, you know, a build up of history and all your points you get, and share some of our videos on there, that would be great. And the same with, well, X, it's now called X, isn't it, not Twitter, because you know, what's his name, my mind's gone blank, you know, Elon Musk, you know, he loves his X symbol, you know. So if you share it on those two sites, on Facebook as well is another good one you could share our videos on. If you're a member of a Viking group, or you're a member of, you know, you got a lot of Viking friends, or they just like general history, because we do quite a lot of diverse content from the fail videos. I'm just trying to be more diverse on the channel to reach that much wider audience, so that I'm not just stuck in a little niche. that'd be brilliant, and I truly thank you for that. And until the next time we meet again in a live stream, which I hope to be in the next few days, it is goodbye from me. And I think the most important thing is that you stay safe and you stay strong, and we keep together as Viking brothers and sisters, because you're my brother and you're my family, and I love you an awful lot, you guys and girls. But yeah, stay safe, folks, and keep smiling and keep on battling is the most important thing, you know, I can tell you to do, because you've got to keep on battling. And don't forget, you know, we often have struggles in life. We often find ourselves, you know, stuck in that little rut where things aren't going right in our lives, and you know, we get caught up in it. But just remember that that's just a little tiny fragment of your life, and it will go. Things will get better, and tomorrow is another day, and next week is another week, and we live in a tremendous time on this planet, on this world, Middle Earth. So be safe, folks, and goodbye from me. Goodbye from Bragi.